Honorable Chair, I rise to report that a quorum does exist for the Joint Committee to commence business.
Thank you very much, honorable members. As we reported that the quorum does exist for the Joint Committee to commence business, those in favor please say aye. And those in favor please say no. On that note, honorable members, welcome to the meeting. Earlier on, we've adopted the agenda. It reads, review adoption of the agenda, framing by the technical team, introduction by participants, administration of affirmation or oath, meeting with officials from PURA, and any other business. And we've dealt with item 1, 2, 3, now going to item 4, that is introduction by participants. To begin with my humble self, Alhaji Dabo, okay.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning to you all. I'm Honorable Lamin Jason, National Assembly member from Pekawa South, co-chair of this committee.
Good morning, Honorable Salih Diao Joker, member of the Public Enterprise Committee and the Joint Committee as well. Thank you.
Good morning, Honorable Samajalo, member of the Dakum, also a member of the Public Enterprise Committee and the committee.
Assalamu alaikum, Honorable Kewana Fufana, member of Fpac and member of the Joint Committee.
Good morning. I am Honorable Keba Tumandisani, National Assembly member from
Yes, good morning. I'm Honorable Musa Chan, member for Serekunda and member of the Fpac Committee.
Good morning. I am Honorable Farisha, now for Parliamentary Constituency, member of Fpac Committee and this Joint Committee. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Ibrahim Al-Midrame, Director of Audits, National Audit Office, to this committee.
Good morning, I'm Modubari from National Audit Office.
Good morning, Sering Mas Jawa, Director of Audit, National Audit Office.
Good morning, Yam Dangai, Director of Audit, National Audit Office.
Good morning, this is Dr. Jogu Ban, Director General of PURA.
Good morning, Usai Jai, Acting Director Petroleum, Water and Energy PURA.
Good morning, I am Emma Mendy, Director of Legal Licensing and Enforcement PURA.
Good morning, I am Ibuget, Senior Economics, PURA.
Good morning, Mohammed Noor, Legal Manager, PURA.
Good morning, Justina Gladys Barukan, Legal Officer, PURA.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Honorable members, we now proceed to the next item that has to do with administration of affirmation for all the government the company can do step down. And we want to do this in a form to be jointly administered. That is, the clerk will come down and administer the affirmation or vote jointly.
Say I don't call your names or after they can do it. Yes. I You affirm that? I shall speak the truth. The whole truth. And nothing but the truth. So help me God. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You can now proceed to the next item, that is the sixth and the main item for that matter, meeting with officials from PURA. Honorable members, it will be called the National Assembly send a solemn letter to PURA inviting them to attend this very important meeting regarding parliament. 935.614 metric tons, valued at $30 million. The inquiry was set by the National Assembly and the joint committee that comprised the Public Accounts Committee, Finance and Public Accounts Committee, and then the Public Enterprise Committee is tasked to conduct the inquiry into the said petroleum product and value, involving allegations of bribery and tax evasion by Akoji FZC Trade Energy Limited and Ultimate Bid Logistics on the said sale of products and value as earlier on highlighted. On this basis, PURA is invited to shed light on issues surrounding the said allegations on the said matter. We welcome you officially to this very important meeting. And as a witness, the mode of procedure for us to conduct this inquiry involving the witnesses. Among our midst, we'll have the lead questioner, I may not call him lead counsel. If you can permit me to do so, I can. Only for the purpose of this meeting, then later he will return back to be a parliamentarian. Now, he will take us through to serious questions that we were able to develop from the statement, and then after exhausting all the key questions, the floor will be open to honorable members to ask supplementary questions. Anyone from the side of PURA can respond to questions that may be posed by the lead questioner or the members. Of course, the head will take the lead. Where he can or where he may not, he can delegate to anyone to respond to those questions. On that note, I now have the honor and pleasure to invite from our midst our lead counsel for this purpose, Honorable Fofana, to take us through the great study.
Thank you, Chair. But I hope you decline the title, Council.
For this purpose.
Thank you. And please welcome to the management team here present and as alarm allocated by the chairman. the questioning format would look at 4 critical components which are very important in terms of operations in PURA. We'll start with the licensing process. We'll look at the monitoring and control mechanisms. We'll look at the accountability and enforcement as stipulated by law. We'll also look at coordination and collaboration. And then from there, we'll have an in-depth look at a critical issue of national concern. So, Mr. Ban, welcome. Can you kindly explain to this joint committee what is the function of PURA?
Thank you very much. Good morning to Mr. Chairman and members of this esteemed committee. Before I do so, I would like you to allow me to read my statement.
Yes, but we'll go through the statement.
Okay.
We have the statement with us, and then as the proceedings continue, we will ask pertinent questions and make a reference to the statement itself.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
So your question again was the role of PURA.
Yeah, the role of PURA.
PURA was established with an act of parliament, and its role is to regulate, I think, 5 or 6 sectors, namely the water, and electricity, GSM operators, petroleum, and transportation. We issue licensings to TVs, radios, and also gas stations, and we do the monitoring and also enforcing. If there are any enforcements or any enforcements to do, PURA, also takes care of that.
What criteria do you use in the issuance of license to oil marketing companies?
When an applicant sends in an application, it is sent to the Department of Water, Electricity and Energy, and to look at, and also to take it to the legal department, for review. All the departments that are relevant to the request to the application are given the opportunity to look at the applicants and the applications and whether all documents and all the requirements are met. Once that is met, payments of GRA and all other documentations, when they are gathered, then the legal then will advise that it is okay, then all the documents. We will send a recommendation to the Ministry of Energy to issue the license or not to issue.
In specific terms, what due diligence did you perform in granting licenses to ONCs? In particular?
let me, I just want to point out to the committee that I come with members that have institutional memory. We've been recently employed there, so 3 months ago. But I would be fair to, allow others to.
That's in order?
Yeah.
Legal.
You can start by stating your name and your position.
Good morning. I am Emma Mendy, the Director of Legal Licensing and Enforcement. May I please ask you to repeat that question again?
I was saying in particular, or in specific terms, what due diligence do PURA perform during the granting of license to OMCs?
Thank you very much. So the first starter is you have to have a corporate presence in the Gambia. It has to be a company that is incorporated in the Gambia. It's either a sole proprietorship or a limited liability company. So once we get that, you also have to submit a business plan, because we have to see whether the application meets the make a proper business case, and whether it's also economically sound to issue that license. And we also have to make sure that the applicant is not a declared bankrupt. And we also have to make sure that the applicant has not committed any felony, which is why we also require a certificate of character from the police. For OMCs, if they have a retail station and they are applying for, let's say, a retail license, you also have to bring a clearance, a certificate from the NEA, as well as the Gambia Fire Service, and also we need a development permit that is also approved by the Department of Physical Planning. In addition to that, we look at all the documents together, and if you fulfill the requirement, we make a recommendation. The Directorate of Legal will look at the legal documents that have been received. The Directorate of Economic Regulation will make an economic analysis of the business plan, which is also supported by financial statements that is reviewed. And the Directorate of Petroleum, Water and Energy will also make technical review of the application. And once all these directorates are satisfied with the application, we make a comprehensive review report and make a recommendation to the minister to issue the license. If there is any one directorate that is not satisfied with the license, we also sit together, discuss it, and if we find possible cause in it, we also make a recommendation to the minister for rejection of that application.
Among the elements that you've listed during the process of performing your due diligence was that the company is supposed to back its business plan by financial statements.
Yes.
How do you verify the credibility of those financial statements?
I think the Directorate of Economic Regulation will be in a better position to answer that.
Thank you very much. Yes, there are different ways of verifying those figures. One of them is basically based on other transactions. For example, if you are actually an existing business that wants to go for another in addition to what you are doing for importation or export license. However, based on the figures that you have given us, we will discount it by 30% or so, and try to do a projections of the financial statement based on the expected quantities of whether you want to import. Now, yes, there are other issues, but also we would want to see other transactions that you have done before. Basically, we ask for your bank statement, whether it is within the country or outside, but for you to see, for us to see that you have the potential actually to do the business first. Now, once we have a starting point, then we start doing the projections of the financial statement. So we have a system of doing these things, and
Mr. Ba, you are at liberty to delegate any of the staff based on their institutional memory. Can you tell this joint committee how many applications did PURA receive with regards to licensing for OMCs? Let's narrow it down to the past 1 year.
The past 1 year. Okay.
Give us a moment, let us verify from our list how many applications we've received this year.
Yes, so I would say we can request for it formally. Then now we'll be making the request, but in that case we'll increase it to 5 years. Then you would not need to give us now. Chair will tell you when, and then he will give you a deadline. Okay. We'll be making a request of the number of applications for OMCs that were received by PURA during the last 5 years. Have you made any denials during the last 5 years?
Certainly, yes.
Proportionately, how much percentage of the applicants were denied?
No, I don't have the percentage.
You don't have
yes,
the percentage?
I'll have to look at it again.
But in general terms, can you tell us some of the reasons that might be responsible for your denials or rejections?
The financial standing is one of them. If the business plan doesn't make a good business case for the particular application, then we make a recommendation to reject it. Sometimes the applicants aren't able to provide all the documents that we require. That too is a reason to reject the application. Other times it's because they did not also meet the technical and environmental requirements to be issued a license. And in that case, we also reject it. Make a recommendation for the rejection.
After the rejection, does this individuals or prospective investors, are they given a period of time where they can reapply again, or once they are rejected?
So by the Petroleum Act, when we make a decision, once a license has been determined and we issue it, you have 30 days, 21 days to make an appeal to the minister for the review of your application. And when we inform them that their license have been rejected, we inform them that they have the right to make an appeal. And if they make the appeal, the appeal lies to the minister, and the minister entertains it. And if there is reason to overrule the recommendation of PURA, that is done. But almost 90% of the time, the recommendation of PURA has always stood.
Let's look at the 10% remaining, where the minister overrules the decision of PURA. Can you give us one instance of that and the reasons behind it?
I wouldn't say the decision was overruled. I'd say it's because the particular license may be applied to operate a station in, the Petroleum Act gave PURA the mandate to regulate downstream petroleum in 2016. Prior to that, stations were still operating, and there wasn't really any detailed type of legislative guideline as to how they go about operating. And then come the Petroleum Act and the regulation, which is setting certain criteria that stations shouldn't be, let's say 300 meters between each other, or 150 meters in case of a dual carriage road and all of that. So, and there are stations that are already existing before that did not meet this requirement. So in instances like that, we make a recommendation saying, okay, this particular station, yes, it is within this proximity, but it's serving maybe a provincial area. And I think it's important to try and satisfy at least those underserved areas. And yes, maybe it's fair to consider this and give them a license, because there are already others that are already operating like that, and it wouldn't be fair to deny this when others are already operating in that sense.
Can you narrow it down to the specifics now?
Okay, I'll let you.
Okay.
I think to narrow it down to the specific details, one of them, as you said, the requirement, for example, to establish a petrol station, one of them is there is a minimum size required in the regulations. And the minister, in terms of the regulations, the minister can, if there is an appeal made.
Sorry, when I say specifics, I mean the year the overall was done, the month, the date, and against which company did PURA made an opinion?
We cannot give that exactly here, but we can provide those details if required. If it is requested, we can give you the details.
But do you know the location of the petrol station, where it might be, where it is located?
Currently, there is one in Nyobi.
In Nyobi?
Yes, in Lower Nyobi.
In Lower Nyobi.
Owned by Clever Seka. Yes, currently under process. In the past, we also have one in the GBA here.
Where precisely?
We have Kairaba Avenue.
Kairaba Avenue.
Yes.
And what was the issue with that particular, how did the location of that particular petrol station contravene the provisions of the Act?
The issue is initially the regulation doesn't allow residences, co-location with residences, but this was amended, and the regulations now allow co-location with residences within 50 meters, but still exempted public places. So these were some of the considerations. So there were certain rejections that were made before the amendments. And after the amendments, we have some of the station owners that appealed to the minister, and because of the amendments, they were granted.
So I would make a submission that we request for the specifics of those opinions which were passed by PURA and the subsequent ruling that was done by the minister for all the stations involved, and also to give us details as to when the Act was amended. And first one will be the request. Details of those petrol stations which were queried by PURA. PURA. With specific dates, huh? Specific dates. And the Act, the date of amendment of the Act itself.
Regulation.
The regulation, huh? Yes. Yeah. That would do for now. Mr. Mao, we will proceed. In your earlier submission, you did indicate that as part of the criteria to be fulfilled by applicants or would-be OLCs is one, they need to be incorporated in the Gambia, and two, they need to have a business plan, and three, they would need to make provisions of their bank statements, and also they need to provide their financial statements as well. So let's assume that this applicant have passed all the stages, and then PURA makes a recommendation to the minister. The recommendation is approved and license is issued. What monitoring mechanisms do you have in place after the issuance of this license to continuously monitor the oil marketing companies?
Now, our licensing framework you have different categories of license. You have the tanker trucks. You have bulk storage facilities. Currently, we have 2 operating. That's Petroleum have been there before the regulations. And more recently, you have GPS. It's the second level. And then you have the retail stations. That's another category of license where we have most of the OMCs operating. So these are different, and each of them we have a different monitoring framework based on the context of their operations. For the for the tanker trucks.
Let's start with the oil marketing companies.
Yes, the OMCs.
Yes.
Most of them also have tanker trucks, but okay. So with the OMCs, in terms of their retail stations, the monitoring starts with the location of the facility. We have a framework called site screening, and there we use a standardized checklist where the parameters in that checklist are from the service station regulations. So there are different things listed. One of them is what we mentioned earlier about the distance from public places, and also a minimum size as some of the requirements for a site to be declared suitable for a petrol station in a given locality. So that's the first step. If that screening is done and the site meets all these requirements, we send a letter to the applicant declaring the site to be suitable. The next stage in terms of monitoring is the construction permitting. That's also another requirement in the regulation. So we also have to make sure that you conform to the specifications in the regulations and the law when it comes to building standards for that particular purpose. So that one also we have a framework in terms of monitoring. We have monitoring schedules. We have 3 schedules of monitoring. When you start, that's you submit the plan as part of the application, the site layout, the EIC mentioned, and also the development permit. Those are the primary documents that you have to submit before we process your construction permit. If we issue a construction permit, we have 3 schedules in terms of monitoring. When you start the groundwork, foundation and so, we visit to see whether you are complying with the plan and layout you have submitted. If you start putting in the tanks, that's another schedule. We visit to see, and the visits we don't do it alone, we do it with other stakeholders. Because I see one of your components talking about stakeholder engagement. Why? Because other stakeholders have also feed into the permitting process, the EIA, the development permits, and they do that with conditions attached and the fire service. So we go with them so that they can also see whether the conditions attached to their permits they have issued have been met by the applicant. So it's a joint stakeholder visit that we do. And then if you finish, that's the final stage. We have another schedule we call pre-operation assessment. Before you start operating, there are parameters that you need to meet. That's also in the regulations. We go, make sure that all these boxes are ticked, but hardly we understand the challenges here in terms of investment. Hardly you can get 100%. That's why we have a technical team with experts. So the ones with high risks, we rate them. If the ones with high risks are not met, we don't allow you to operate. But if you have few of these things that are not in place, we give you a conditional permit to start with maybe 1 week or 2 weeks to fulfill the few ones that are lacking behind. If you do so, you write back to us, and then we go verify that you have done that, and officially we write to you an authorization letter to operate. That's for the OMCs in terms of retail stations. For the fuel tanker trucks, we have an information system in place, and we're doing the monitoring in partnership with Pages. Pages does the inspection, and then they send that through the information system we have, and then the certification is done with the signature of the DG, automated. So there is nothing that you can manipulate in that. There is a criteria as the regulations highlighted. So those are the things that police will look in terms of the mechanical and the health and safety aspects of the truck. So if you don't meet them, they will fail you. And that's done every 6 months. So for the tanker trucks, that is it. Every 6 months, the cycle, you go again, inspect it, approve or disapprove. If you are disapproved, you have to go with a recommendation. All the recommendation, you fix them, come back, be inspected, and then you are allowed to continue your operation. That's for the fuel tanker trucks. For the depot, there is a specific regulation on health, safety, and environment for the depots. That's the framework that we follow in terms of monitoring the depots. So for GPS, which came into existence when the regulations was already passed, we followed the same process of site screening, construction permitting, and assessment before operation. But GP was there before the regulations, even before the act. So all the facilities were already in place. So we are not able to follow that. But what we have done is every 6 months, we have what we call HSC monitoring. Because the facilities are already in place, we don't have the opportunity to do those other stages of monitoring. But as far as their operations is concerned, what we do is we try to make sure they conform with health, safety, and environmental standards as the regulation specified. So that's done every 6 months. We visit, and then we do that visit with stakeholders again, particularly fire service. And as part of that, we try to make sure that the equipment used for firefighting and so forth are in good condition through drills and so forth. We also try to make sure that they have documentations guiding their operations in terms of policies, health and safety policies and so forth. So basically, those are some of the frameworks we have for the different categories.
Thank you for that detailed elaboration. You've provided us with the requirements or the variables that PURA would look into before an OMC would start operating. One would be the location of the facility, the minimum size, then you assess the suitability, you look at also the construction of the facility and the building standard. Now, what happens after the building have been approved and the OMC starts operating? How do you monitor and evaluate them?
Thank you very much. We have a team of inspectors in the office that conduct continuous monitoring exercises across the country every now and then. So the requirements are really detailed out in the different regulations, depending on what category of OMCs we're talking about. Everything is in the regulation. So the team goes around, monitors, and just make sure that whatever is required by the regulation is in place. Let's say if it is a retail station, you're required to have fire extinguishers there, you're required to have labelings on your stations, you're required to meet certain health and safety requirements. It's all in the regulations, it's defined there. So when they do conduct these monitoring exercises and they find a particular station that hasn't complied with that, they make a report and bring it back and report back to the office that this is what they've found. And it's either they make a recommendation to say we're giving you a period of 2 weeks to improve these certain standards because you are actually operating below the standards that are set, or if it is an issue that requires escalation, they make a recommendation to the legal department and say we've actually found that this particular station has started operating without actually following the process as set by the law. They were supposed to apply for site screening and all, but they started constructing without that. Please issue them a stop notice or please make an enforcement order against them so we can take it from there. So those are the issues, the things that we do to make sure there is continuous monitoring after the license has been issued.
How often are those reviews conducted?
So it depends on the area of operation. For example, health and safety, as I think I mentioned it, every 6 months. Most of the time we do it 6 months. The reason is the environmental dynamics in the country, the rainy season and the dry season. We try to see the difference in terms of their operation in both seasons. That's for the petrol station health and safety and environmental monitoring. Another monitoring schedule we have in terms of continuous operations is the fuel pump verifications. We do that with weights and measures. Currently we just completed that cycle and have monitored about 685 fuel pumps across the country. So that's done with weights and measures because that's their mandate. Verification, but this sector is regulated by PURA. So we have that partnership and MOU where our team joins their team, we provide the logistics and we go around the country to verify whether the accuracy of the pumps. So that's another aspect in terms of continuous monitoring.
Do you face any challenges when it comes to non-compliance?
Yes, we have, in terms of compliance, we have a hierarchy. I think we, most of the time at the base, most of our activities is on engagement. So we usually try to educate the OMCs during our inspection monitorings, because that's face-to-face. Some of them are really not aware of the requirements in the regulations, even though that's not an excuse. But we usually try to educate them in the field. That's one step. And the next one is through the reports she mentioned. If we get these reports, we send our recommendations, and most of the time we invite them for presentation of the reports so that they can understand exactly what do we want in terms of compliance, stage-wise. And that way we continue to filter where we have total negligence. That's the time that the technical department will escalate to the legal department for enforcement. So this is actually, in terms of compliance, this is the approach we have. But as you said, in some cases we do have that friction in the field. But most of the time it's handled through our professional approach of engagement.
What consequences are there when it comes to non-compliance?
The legal can maybe allow the legal to handle it.
I think on the issue of challenges, first I'll address that before I go to the consequences. As I mentioned earlier, we started regulating the downstream petroleum in 2016. So one of the challenges for stations and OMCs that were operating prior to 2016, because you can see the regulations make very strict requirements that we cannot now apply to these stations that were already there prior to that. And then the perception of fairness, that is where it comes from. Because you are trying to now impose stricter requirements to a new entrant that is coming in to say this is what the law says, and it's like the law is saying this, but there are all of these that are operating and they are not complying with that requirement. What are we now going to do with them? So that is one challenge that we have. Another challenge, it's monitoring. We don't have regional offices, and so the frequency of monitoring is not as frequent as we would have loved to have. So sometimes by the time you go and conduct the monitoring, something might have transpired that we could have detected earlier, but because the frequency is not there, we aren't able to detect it early enough. And I also should mention that some of our monitoring can also come as a result of reporting. Any citizen, any person at all can notice something that is probably something that needs to be looked at, and you make a report to PURA that we've detected that something like this is going on there, and we get the tip off, and a team is sent to go and do the monitoring. In terms of enforcement, we have the enforcement regulations that we use.
We'll be coming to enforcement right now. After this control mechanisms, we'll go to the enforcement. But this is a very interesting point. So one of the challenges you face is most of the stations that were built before 2016 were not conforming to the regulations as it was stipulated.
Yes.
The amendment. So then the perception of fairness comes into being. What was the intent of the amendment during 2016?
No, not in 2016. It wasn't an amendment. In 2016 was when we actually started regulating.
When you started regulating?
Yes.
Yes. What was the intent of those regulations?
It's to sanitize the environment, to make.
I think before 2016, the sector was fragmented. You have some of the processes with NEA, some of the processes with physical planning, and the rest with the Minister of, by then the Minister of Petroleum, and now Minister of Petroleum and Energy. So I think there was a need, with the sector really growing, the sector was really expanding in terms of the services. There was a need to have an independent regulator for the downstream, because there was already a commission for the upstream regulation. So downstream virtually was not regulated, which gave rise to the development of the Petroleum Products Act 2016. So this was it, but as he said, I think the act is forward-looking. The act was forward-looking. So you develop the act, and then you start to, if you want to look back as to what were the standards before the act, that was a problem. But the approach we took as a regulator is the structures, the facilities that were already in existence, and they did not meet the requirements. Our emphasis was on health, safety, and environment in terms of their operations. So as part of our monitoring, we always try to make sure that these facilities, they adhere to, strictly adhere to health and safety requirements in terms of their operations. Because, for example, they fail to meet the minimum size required. That could have an impact. It's a risk in terms of people maneuverability within the station.
What is the minimum size?
The minimum size is 1,050 square meters.
1,050 square meters.
And a frontage of 30 meters.
When you say frontage, what do you mean?
The front, where you have access in and out of the station.
What should be the distance between the stations and public facilities?
It's 50 meters.
50 meters. This is what the regulation is saying. Still, I would come back to my initial question. She said during her submission that the challenge they have was it was difficult to really align the stations that were built before the regulation came into being, because they were already in existence. That was why I asked her the question, what was the intent of the regulation, which you answered very well, that the regulation was forward-looking, which means you wanted to see that change is effected. And to ensure that that change is effected, the regulations should be enforced. Is that right?
Yes.
The regulations should be enforced. Now, tell us, what is your enforcement rate with regards to making sure that the petrol stations that were built prior to 2016 are consistent with the provisions of the regulation?
In regulation, one thing that we have to bear in mind is that we also have to look at how it's going to affect consumers, the public, and all. If you look at the way the regulation is drafted, if we were to enforce it strictly, 95% of stations would have been closed.
Let me ask you these questions. What is the intent of the minimum size? Why do you say it have to be at least 1,050 meters?
I think in terms of enforcement, I think I slightly touched it when I was
let's expand on these requirements. Maybe that will help us to understand the reason behind those. Why do you want to maintain a minimum size of 1,050 meters?
One of the reasons about safety.
Safety.
Because there are minimum structures required in the petrol station, and you will want to have distance, appropriate distance between the structures within the station, so that you can have that required safety in terms of operations.
Why do you need 30 meters for the frontage of the petrol station?
Still is on safety, because the vehicle needs to come in and out, and then you have different sizes of vehicle. So to make it short, just vehicle maneuverability, and that's also still on safety.
And the 50 meters distance between the petrol stations and other facilities?
Still on safety.
Still on safety.
But public safety now, not only relating to your specific operations.
Then you can continue with what you were trying to say.
Yeah. All right. So now, in terms of enforcement, you have the monetary part, and then you have the compliance part. For example, the site screening. Most of the rejections happens during site screening. That's the site location. We can give you that data. We cannot give it by head right now, but if you request for it, we can give you maybe for the past 2 years. The sites that were declared suitable and the ones that were declared unsuitable. So you can see that you have so many petrol stations coming up. If you look at the number of applications that are also rejected, it's really very significant based on these criteria. So that's for me, that's the first step in terms of enforcement. And then the second step, which usually ends up with legal, is sites constructing without having construction permits. We also have that issue, that where people build without following due process in terms of the site screening, and because of our inspectors going around the country, they will visit and then discover this, and if that's the case, we also forward that for enforcement. So these are some of the enforcements relating directly to operations that we handle without any monetary terms. And in terms of stations that are already approved and they are operating, and they have violated these regulations, they are also enforcements that the legal team is handling. Maybe she can buttress more on that area.
No, what we'll do at this point is to request for those reports, that is the reports of the site screenings.
Yes.
Now, chairman will make those formal requests, and then the committee will go through them and we'll get back to you. The reports of the site screening. Site screening. Mr. Ra, can you describe the specific controls that PURA have in place within the sector to prevent illegal activities in specific towns, such as sales of oil linked to criminal organizations? How do you ensure that?
Yes, there are different control mechanisms, starting from the application process, as mentioned by the legal department. During the application, the first thing is the registration of the company within the Ministry of Justice. I mean, from there we also require certain information from you to take and do our background checks on the customer, whether there are other criminal issues that the company has or not. If we do, then we would, depending on, because mostly that will be done by legal, and if we do, and then we found out that there are criminal issues, we can reject or we can recommend for rejection based on that. However, most of the people that might go criminal, illegal activities might not come through the knowledge of the regulator, because like naturally criminals could not come through the right channels, and they might go to the channels that we might not be aware. But if you come through the application process, there is highly probability that you will be detected, and once you are detected, we will recommend for rejection of the application.
Thank you. The sequence of controls you've highlighted are basically during the application process, and that is before the company is licensed to operate in the petroleum sales. The activities I am referring to would happen at the upstream level. That is after issuing the license and the OMC is operating. So the question to be specific is, do you have any controls at the upstream level to ensure that these OMCs have been monitored as to who they buy fuel from, how capable those companies are?
When you say the upstream level, PURA does not have the mandate to do upstream. However, what in the petroleum value chain, there are what we call traders. Traders basically, PURA do not have mandate to license them, to regulate them, because in the value chain, the depot is the borderline. So our regulation starts from the depot down to the consumer, or down to the OMC. So that is where we regulate. So the upstream, we don't do any checkups, and then we are not even mandated to do that. So the only thing that we do is to check the quality of fuel that we have, and that we do regularly, depending on the need basis.
We understand that very well, that the international traders do not need or do not require a license to bring petroleum products to the border. But these international traders do not operate in vacuum. They need a depot to deposit their petroleum products. They need OMCs for the inland distribution of those petroleum products. So now, you regulate the OMCs and you also regulate the depot. That is the question now. How do you ensure that the OMCs and the depot are working with credible international traders?
Yes, that is not the mandate of PURA. We don't we are not regulating the operational aspect of the OMCs and the depot. We have standards, for example, the quality of the fuel that is coming into the country, that we regulate. We regulate maybe in terms of the regulations of ullage and other stuff that we do regulate. However, we don't regulate, we don't go into the operational aspects of any of the sectors that we operate. For example, let me give you another sector that we operate, which is the ICT. We don't go to a specific company and say, who are your customers? That is a necessity, that is a KYC that is required. If they don't do the KYC, then we will have a problem with them. But once they are operating within the company, we don't regulate to who they do. Those are commercial terms. We don't regulate commercial terms.
Whose responsibility would it be?
In terms of responsibility, I am not very sure who, but I know for certain that when it comes to commercial operations or commercial terms and conditions between, it mostly lies on the individual operator, or it might, if it is financial, if it has to deal with financial aspect, it might be FIU or so, because basically we don't look into the commercial and operational aspect of that.
The term commercial might be relative, because what you are referring to here as commercial, we are looking at it has operational efficiency in cognizance or in consonance with the terms of the license being issued.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Maybe we are not understanding each other very well, but what I'm saying is, we don't do both commercial and operational regulations. What we do is we give you terms and conditions under which you should operate under our license.
That's what I mean. I'm saying what we are referring to either as commercial or operational is relative. Because you issue the license, and from the earlier submissions, you make review of their operations. Does they come for renewal of those licenses?
Yeah, they do.
They will come for renewal of those licenses.
Yeah.
When they come for renewal of those licenses, what are the criteria for their renewals?
Yes, when they come for the operational license, the first thing that we have to look at is, we look at the terms and conditions that are stipulated in the license, whether they were whether they were operating in accordance with those terms and conditions.
Can you tell us those terms and conditions?
I can't recall all of them. But we can give you a sample.
No, we will need that right now because we need to complete this particular question.
Okay, that's right.
Yes.
So a condition of their license is that they are required to comply with all the regulations, the conditions of the law. And maybe to just respond to that, what we do is we don't have the capacity to see exactly every operations that they are doing. But because it's a competitive business that they are in, most of the time when there are issues, you receive a report from another OMC that is saying, look, this is what is going on. They make a complaint and then we investigate and make a decision based on the complaint that is received. So if there is really an operator, an OMC that is operating illegally or doing something that is likely going to affect another OMC, most of the time they will report. And when we are reviewing their license, what we look at is the level of compliance of the applicant with the legal framework. Have they been complying with all the standards that have been set? Have they been complying when PURA issues directive to them? Have they paid all their existing fines that they have? Have they complied with any directive really that comes from the authority? Those are also some of the things that we look at. And in reviewing an application for renewal, we still also ask for financial statement, and we review those. One of the enforcements that was triggered, in fact, by PURA came as a result of the review of financial statement. Because when we started reviewing the financial statement, we started seeing transactions between the particular applicant and another OMC, which wasn't legal. Because as far as we were concerned, you are not yet an OMC, you are not yet licensed. And the law says before you are allowed to engage in the downstream petroleum sector, you are required to have a license. So when we saw the transaction, we knew that this is an operation that was going on illegally, and we took action against that. But there isn't really easy ways of knowing. It's not as simple as checking on health and safety requirement where you go and just see. These are usually things that are triggered maybe by chance or maybe as a result of a report that came to the authority.
If I understand you very well, it's an issue of capacity and not that of responsibility. Are you accepting the fact that it is your responsibility to really have that oversight role? And knowing it down to capacity that you don't have the capacity, that's why you rely on open source to get feedbacks?
I would say it will not be entirely fair to say it's because the capacity is triggered by a lot of things. I think in our mini submission here, which...
Sorry, I said capacity because I picked that up from your submission.
Yes, that's why I'm responding to that. We've made several submissions in the past before the assembly. that to adequately regulate a sector, you need a lot of resources and tools to do that. So capacity in terms of what? Are we talking about human capacity, the tools that we need to do our job properly, and all of that? Yes, if you look at all these areas, we're still lagging far behind. And that is because when you look at other regulators in other countries, they operate differently than we operate. The reason why we are having most of these challenges, I think he already mentioned, is because of the fragmented processes that we have in the way our licenses are issued. If we go to another regulator in another country, the regulator has the power to review the license and also to issue the license. Because if you own the license, you are able to make adequate monitoring, and when there are actions, you can easily revoke the license or suspend the license or take the actions that are needed. If you go to other regulators, they are also responsible for collecting the license fees. That way they are also able to get tools in place. Maybe we would have been able to have a tracking system where you are able to track this in addition to the human capacity that you are using to do the monitoring. But you come to PURA, it's a different issue. You have a regulator that is not collecting the licenses, that is not responsible for issuing the license.
We will give you the opportunity to come with the organizational challenges by the time we are wrapping up this session, because it's a very critical component. But right now what we want to do is to correlate all the responses in sequence to the questions that are coming. And as of now, our main focus is on what roles and responsibilities does PURA play in monitoring these OMCs and the depots after the issuance of this license in terms of who they do business with and their credibility rating. Do you have any oversight functions in that? No. You do not perform it. No. Okay. Is that an industrial standard? Is it an industrial standard? Regulatory authorities do not perform oversight on the credibility of the entities that the license holders do business with.
If you may allow me, let me just speak from where he's talking in terms of the delineation from the traders and also regulations
let's just get this question.
Yeah. No, I get your question. I'm just building from.
Please answer that question. So we have other questions coming.
So in terms of our monitoring activities, one of the monitoring activity we have is stock monitoring.
So this
yes,
yes. Is that an industrial standard?
Yes, stock monitoring is an industrial standard.
My question is it an industrial standard that regulators do not monitor the credibility of the license holders with regards to the entities they do business with?
It is an industrial standard, so that you have to separate the function of regulations from operation of public utilities.
Thank you very much.
So who they deal with, that is their internal operations. It is outside of our mandate. We are only required to step in if there are glaring issues or reports that come that they are doing this, then we can see where our function as a regulator stops and where their operations begin. But it is an industrial standard that we have to separate the function of regulation and operations. So we can't determine for an OMC which client that they have, who they deal with, except where they are actually doing something that is not allowed by the law. But we don't have the power to start looking into their operation unless we have reason to do so.
By the provisions of the regulation, would that be referred to as being a reactive staff?
Can I just I think there is something that we might be missing here. That's why I thought it would be important that we give a brief explanation as to who the OMCs are dealing with. here the OMCs are not dealing with the traders directly. What a trader does is, the trader brings the stock to the depot. Now at the level of the depot, that is where now you buy from the depot. OMCs buy from the depot. Now they buy from the depot through a trader. Now, the problem that we have sometimes is...
Can I correct that so that your submission can be guided? We have in submission, we have evidence that OMCs can do it both ways.
Yes.
They can be in direct contact with the traders. And the traders are also at liberty to bring the product up the border, the depot. So there is no regulation stopping the OMCs from. Just for guidance.
I am giving you the flow. Yes, I accept that OMCs are having direct contacts as people that they call their suppliers, and they are also traders. But the actual flow is, any trader can come to the depot. Through the depot, they will do the testings. If they meet the standards, they put their stock in the storage. Now then OMCs will come and buy from the storage. Now, yes, they are definitely buying from the trader, but they are not actually liable to be direct. Like for example, let's assume a trader is bringing a stock at the depot. It could be for any of the OMCs, but they are liable to sell to any other person or any OMC, because that is where the stock starts. You know, that's where the stock is. So all OMCs will go and buy from you. So there are certain OMCs that don't even know who are traders, because they don't have traders. But that is where now the problem comes. I mean, if you say, okay, can PURA now regulate who brings stock to the depot? No, that is the operational aspect of the depot. And that is what exactly...
There are two things in play. We help each other to understand it. One, we are not saying PURA to regulate who brings fuel to the depot. No. We are not saying PURA. We are asking PURA whether they do regulate the international traders. And two, we know that as a committee, traders can bring fuel up to the border without a license. But we do equally know that as a committee, OMCs have traders they call their suppliers, and in those instances, OMCs will be the ones to apply for the unit, and the fuel will come in the name of those OMCs up to the border. Both are in play. So now, our interest here is these OMCs are given a license to operate within the dictates of the law. And PURA as the industrial regulator, how do you ensure that these OMCs, all of their actions are within the confines of the law? This is simply what we are asking for. And when we say the confines of the law, even though the trader, his product is at the border, but without the gambler, the product wouldn't be sold. Because from the border, it will enter the source of the gambler. We are not telling you regulate or monitor the trader, but we are telling you what do you do to ensure that this OMC that you are regulating is buying from a credible trader. And that is the question we are asking.
I don't want to be agreeing with you.
No, we are not arguing. You are sorry, you are supposed to give answers, not arguing.
Yeah,
you've clearly stated that PURA doesn't have any monitoring mechanism on that. So the committee will take that submission, and at the level of the committee, we'll evaluate it. And we can come up with recommendations. All we want to know is how it is done. What are the standards in PURA? Okay, what needs to be strengthened? Okay, what challenges are there? This is what we want to know. And if you are sure that this is how it is in PURA, that's okay. It's not your submission there. That is the submission of the entity.
Yeah,
so, no, I would ask you again, do you perform, and that will be for the last time, it's just a simple yes or no answer. Do you perform any oversight or monitoring on the OMCs with regards to the credibility of the source of their fuel supplies?
If it is yes or no, it's no.
Thank you. Then we proceed. Mr. Bala, what penalties or enforcement actions does PURA have with regards to companies that violate the regulations?
There are penalties in place, and I will ask them legal to step on that. Yes.
The enforcement regulations details out the different types of penalties depending on the offense. And also the Petroleum Product Act itself has certain offenses that are there that has penalties based on convictions. So it's in the enforcement regulation as well as the Petroleum Products Act.
Was there any recent enforcement action against any OMC or OMCs that failed to meet their regulatory obligations?
Yes, we have one right now.
Who?
Equal.
Equal.
Yes.
What was the outcome?
So the regulation requires that before they import into the country, overland importation, they are supposed to get the approval of the authority before they do that. But in this instance, they went ahead and imported fuel until it got to the border before applying to the authority. So we sent a team there. We sent a team of inspectors that went and looked and confirmed that the fuel was actually in the border. And as far as our record is concerned, we did not have any proof of record of application from them for overland importation. So we invited them for a meeting and explained to them that this is a requirement of the law, and that they failed in complying with what the law requires before importation. So we decided that we are going to do an enforcement against them. So yes, there's an enforcement right now. It's the most recent against Ecuador.
Okay. During your submission with regards to the issuance of license to OMCs, you did indicate that although the authority is the one who receives the application, but at the end of the day, what you do is a recommendation to the Minister for approval. So the committee would like to know whether in the instance of the export, the authority have the mandate to give approvals, or do you, in this instance as well, only receive the applications?
Approval for?
You said you needed approval of the authority.
So for overland importation, yes, they do need authorization to bring in because
From who exactly?
From the authority, from PURA.
From PURA.
Yes.
That's why I asked you the question. During your submission for the processes involved in the issuance of license to AMCs, you indicate that PURA will receive the application. You will do the evaluation based on the criterion requirements and later make a recommendation to the minister to approve or to what? Deny. So I'm asking, in the case of the export, does the authority, meaning PURA, have the absolute mandate to give approval or denial, or do you make recommendations? And if so, to who?
So we're talking about two things here. The licensing is different because before you are even allowed to bring in fuel through overland, you have to have a license. So the license, we make a recommendation to the minister. And it's not re-export, it's overland importation. So yes, they still need to make an application to PURA for overland importation. PURA needs to make a recommendation again to the minister. If the minister approves it, then PURA has to inform them that it has been approved.
And that's exactly what I was asking.
Can I just add a word?
Yes, no, see, you've answered the question. That's exactly what we wanted to know. You know, okay, we wanted to know whether you have the absolute authority to give approvals in cases of inland importation, or you make recommendations to the minister for him to do approvals. You make recommendations, just like in the licensing process. Okay, and what is the outcome of that particular enforcement currently?
It hasn't been dispatched yet.
It hasn't been dispatched.
Yes.
When was this reported? When did you realize this?
July. In July.
In
July.
In July. Precisely the beginning of July, middle of July.
July 29th.
July 29th. No,
I'll have to confirm the date, but thereabouts.
Okay, let's say July 29th. What are the reasons holding that enforcement? So why couldn't you, when you say it is not yet dispatched, what do you mean? Please, let's get try again. What do you mean when you said it is not yet dispatched?
So the way enforcement goes, because when they sent, when they finally got the product into in the border, and the product was stopped there and they applied, it went to the Department of Petroleum. They reviewed and had to send a team. So the team had to go and verify, because our concern was, this is a huge, I think it was 120 liters, right? Of fuel imported overland. We have 120,000 liters.
120,000 liters, huh?
Yes.
Okay.
So one concern that we had was, can we go and verify whether this hasn't actually been illegally smuggled into the country before they apply for the overland? So we sent a team. The team went and confirmed that everything was sealed, so it is actually there. So we invited them for a meeting and explained to them that this is something that they should have been aware of, because they've been operating in the sector for a while. So it should have been something that the application should have preceded the importation. So they gave their reasons, and we informed them that for safety reasons, we did not want to allow these trucks that are fully loaded with highly combustible fuel product to be out there. So we said we are going to authorize this to go, but for failing to actually follow the process that is required, before that happens, we are going to ensure the process takes its course internally. I think this happened about 2 weeks ago when that happened. So we drafted it, we worked on the drafting of the enforcement, but it hasn't been dispatched because we have to clear it internally.
But you have released the product, or you've given the product clearance?
Yes.
Which one should have been more difficult? Drafting it or allowing the product to go?
I think allowing the product.
That one should have been more difficult. Because their interest is for the product to go. Their interest is for the product to go. And your interest is to enforce the regulation. And in the enforcement, we all know the end result would be to find them. Would it have been easier to collect your fine before clearing the product to go, or after?
Either one could have gone, but I think what we were actually looking at was safety.
Yes.
Which is why we said it's important to remove that product, because if something is to happen, the fine is really very minimal compared to the danger that is associated with it being out there.
We totally agree, but this happened around 29th of August. June, sorry, 29th of July. Now we are in September, almost 1 month. So I think we encourage the authority to finalize on that. Now you look at the coordination and collaboration that PURA has with all the stakeholders. Mr. Ba, how does PURA coordinate with other governmental and regulatory bodies to oversee, in particular, the oil marketing companies? Which government bodies do you collaborate with?
Thank you very much. We almost work with all the government institutions that were operating in the petroleum downstream sector. And since we took over also, we have made a lot of partnership with other private sectors and also government institutions. In terms of monitoring, for example, we have an MOU with Pages, as I said, for monitoring the fuel tanker trucks.
Who is Pages?
Pages is a private operator. It's an engineering company that we have an MOU with. They are responsible for carrying inspection of fuel tanker trucks as part of our monitoring framework. So for the government institutions, the licensing framework, as we said, we have a strong partnership with NEA throughout the process, and also physical planning. These were established through several engagements and meetings that we have with them to streamline the processes we have. For example, construction permitting, physical planning, they are mandated to give development permits. So we also give construction permits. They are very similar, but through several engagements with them, we are able to align the whole process, that they give the development permit, and that becomes a requirement for us to give a construction permit. Similarly with NEA also. On fuel pump verification, we have an MOU with weights and measures, and through that we have an annual verification to all fuel pumps. The other key institution that we partner with is the Gambia Standard Bureau. In terms of fuel quality, they are the ones, they are the custodians for the national specifications, and this we are developed through a very strong partnership we have. Within the same arrangement we have with them, we also do fuel density measurement that feeds into the fuel monthly tariffs. It's one of the parameters required to calculate the monthly tariffs. So we do that through the metrology lab, which is run by the Standards Bureau. So if we also want to do any calibration or verification, particularly at the depots, the Standard Bureau is the first institution that we touch base with, because that is also still their mandate. So it's really very cost-cutting. Most of the things you will need third parties, services, to be able to make a decision, and in most cases that is what we do, both during the licensing and also monitoring operations.
Thank you. Can you describe any recent collaborative effort or joint investigation?
Today there is one going on in our absence. We have a team visiting all the LPG facilities. That's the gas. LPG is liquefied petroleum gas we use at home. We have about 6 or 7 in the country refilling plants. We visited in the first quarter of this year, and then it's a joint team, Coast Fire Service, GFRS. They have a very important role they play when it comes to these facilities. So the NEA also is involved, is important. So there is a joint team going to make a verification visit. We visited in the first quarter and make key recommendations for them to improve the operations of the plant. So that was sent with deadlines, and after the deadline, some of them submitted progress reports to show that they have complied with the recommendations we made. Some of them did not. So today, the joint team is going to verify whether the ones that submitted, actually what they submitted is in place, and the ones that did not submit, why they did not submit, the reasons. From there, we will have to continue the cycle to enforcement again. So that's the most recent is today.
And you are doing that exercise in collaboration with which institution?
We are doing it in collaboration with NEA and GFRS.
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 What role does the authority play in addressing cross-border issues related to oil marketing?
I think one of the issues in terms of cross-border, as I said, is the overland importation. That's one. The other one is illegal fuel blending. It's another. Just to give you a bit of history, when we took over the petroleum sector, illegal fuel blending was really very frequent, even in the greater Banjul area. And one of the reasons you can understand is we cannot do away without PURA. Access has to be there, and the petrol stations were really scarce. But I think with the regulations and streamlining the process of authorization, we have so many petrol stations in the GBA here now. And as a result, 3 years ago, we conducted a campaign against illegal fuel blending in the GBA. Why? Because it's something that you cannot allow anymore because of the access in terms of established petrol stations. And this was done in the West Coast region, partly the GBA, mostly in the West Coast region, Birkama, around Sinchu. We partner with the police and what's the other institutions, GFRS, and also NEA. We partner with them again, and there was a task force that was formed and GRA also, GRA, because of the revenue implications. These illegal fuel vendors, they don't pay tax. So we made an investigation at night. There was a team that was sent to just identify key areas where illegal fuel blending is happening. Some of these trucks by then, if they empty, usually you will have something still remaining, and then they have their own spots around the GBA where they will go and empty into gallons and sell. So we identify a lot of these spots, and the next day we form different teams, and at a go these teams get into the areas that were identified in the Birkama market and some areas in Sinju, and most of these you have a lot of gallons that were confiscated, and they were disposed at the Nawek facility through their swatch, because the quality was really very bad. So that was one of the interventions we did, and it's something that we want to continue, particularly in the GBA, because it's something that we will not allow totally, but still on capacity again, not the personnel here, but the material. If we have to continue that, depending on the volumes, you have to get the appropriate space to store it. When we did it, that was one of the challenges we have. We temporarily store it with the depot owned by fire service behind the police, mobile police at Carnival. Fire service have a depot there. That's where we store it, but the storage was not appropriate, and we cannot keep it there for a very long period of time because of the risks associated. So that's one of the challenges we have, and we also don't have a framework to guide illegal fuel blending. Something that is in our strategy, that to come up with a framework to guide illegal fuel blending in terms of our operations, eliminating illegal fuel blending. So for the provinces, that's a big challenge, because we don't really have an established office in the provinces to do routine monitoring of illegal fuel blending. But in terms of overland importation, that's really controlled, as is said. We don't even have the authority to say you can initiate overland importation. We monitor stock levels at the depot. If they reach an emergency level, have different levels of emergencies, as in the emergency supply regulation. There's a regulation for that. We monitor the stock levels on a daily basis. The depot sends us the stock levels. If they get to that level, we alert the minister, send a letter to the minister informing him of the situation, And if the minister authorizes for overland importation based on the emergency situation, then we inform the OMCs who have valid importation license. So there are criteria that you need to meet. That's why when you said about credibility, I was trying to give you a context. If it is the normal importation by sea, we don't really have an oversight. The capacity is yet to be there. But if it is overland importation, there is a structured process that is followed. So if this is done, then you apply to PURA, and part of your applications, there are things that you need to meet. One of them is you have to identify the source of the product. If it is coming from Senegal, you have to submit an invoice coming from the source, and usually we make a follow-up because we have a strong partner with SGS of Senegal, and they know most of the suppliers in Senegal. Most of the quality assurance also is done by SGS for these products. So the other requirement is the quality assurance. The product coming needs to have a certificate of quality. Just to give you some of the criteria that we look into to recommend to the Minister for authorization when it comes to overland importation.
Thank you. Mr. But now we'll move into the specifics of a particular issue which is of national concern. And to start with, do you know a company by the name of Apoji?
Yeah, I heard about the name.
In your records, do you have anything? Have you issued any license to Apoji?
Apoji, no. You received an application for Apoji Gambia. You received an application for Apoji Gambia, but for Apoji, the main, no, we do not. We have not issued.
Yes, okay. Will allow you to add anything on that Apoji, because in some places they are known as Apoji FZC, in some places they are known as Apoji FZE, and in other places they are known as Apoji Gambia Limited. So do you have in your records any of the three?
Yes.
Apoji Gambia Limited, yes.
What do you have in your records regarding Apoji Gambia Limited?
Apoji FZC has operated as trader in the Gambia until the authority on 29th of July 2024 received an application for importation and re-export license by its subsidiary Apoji Limited Gambia. Upon notice of this investigation, the authority put the application on hold until a decision is made on the applicant's parent company under investigation. The authority has now instructed a private legal practitioner to prosecute all other pending enforcement. It has also set up a committee to look into this application and all other pending enforcements in the petroleum sector. But that is the best of my knowledge and information that we had on Apoji Gambia Limited.
So the decision of the authority to hold on to the application of Apoji is premised on the fact that currently there is an inquiry. Apart from the inquiry of the Joint Committee of Parliament, do you have any other reason that would have warranted you to hold on to the application?
No.
Actually, like DG has said, we got application from Apoji Gambia, But because there is an investigation, we didn't even review the application. So it is on hold. So it is not like we have reviewed and seen all of our issues and then make it on hold. No, because this is, I think they came very late, just when this investigation was already in place, and then we thought, you know, it is not even necessary for us to look at it because this could be a major determinant of what decisions should be taken. So it is not really.
So you haven't even opened the application?
Open and review is different. Yes, we must have opened it. Yeah, but it is not a review. So we have not gone through it. Yeah, I mean, like we have not reviewed the application itself, but meaning we have not gone through the due diligence process. But I mean, basically we must have opened and take all the documents and then.
And you received the application on the 29th of July?
Yes, they are.
But why do you think that this ongoing inquiry should be sufficient basis for you to put the application on hold? Why did you take that decision?
Not maybe sufficient. If I say sufficient basis to hold it, but because if, for example, their parent body is having issues of national issues with our National Assembly, we thought it is not. It's going to be a dishonor to the National Assembly to continue reviewing a company that is under investigation, you know, to assess even whether they can or they cannot. Now we are not saying they cannot be issued or they can be issued. We are saying you have, I mean, like we have people, maybe our superior, who are looking at your authenticity of the company or their dealings within the country. So we will put it on hold. And if, for example, there is any issue, we don't even need to look at it. If there is no issue, then we will look at now whether we can issue or we cannot issue. So we don't want to just do a work that will come to a hold at some point in time because it is so.
Who are the shareholders in that company? They are Apogee Gambia Limited.
Apogee Gambia Limited is Apogee. I think the shareholders basically most about 90-something% of it is for Apogee FC. 90% Apogee FC as their and the other 10% I think is what I cannot remember the name. I mean, but 90% is owned by the parent company.
90% is owned by the parent company.
Yes.
And 10% is owned by who?
I need to verify the name.
Okay, Chair. I will make a submission that we do request to have in our records the application made by Apogee Gambia Limited.
So it's 99% that is owned by.
So I want to put on record that we made a request to have in our records the submission or the application submitted to PURA by Apogee. By Apogee Gambia Limited. Yes. Yes, Council. You were saying something?
I was going to say it's 99% of the shares that is owned by Apogee FCE, and
you can take the mic. Turn the mic closer. Yes.
99% of the shares is owned by Apogee FZE, and Orimas pronounce this wrong. Orimas Tiblis own 1% of the share.
Okay. Thank you. Then the chairman will make a request so that we can have that application in full. Do you know Ultimate Age Logistics?
Ultimate. Yes, sir.
Do you equally know Creed Energy?
Creed, yes.
We'll take them one at a time. How did you become aware of the activities of Ultimate Age Logistics?
They sent in a request for license for importation on the 26th of June 2023. That's Ultimate Beers. And we have the applications, I think, that we shared with you. So during the review of the application,
if you may want to read from your submission, you can direct us to the relevant pages, and then you will easily follow.
Sure. On page 4.
Page 4.
Yeah. On page 4. That is when I said they submitted the application for petroleum products importation license on the 26th of June.
Which article? 18, right? Article 18.
Yes.
Page 4, Article 18. Yes, you may proceed.
18, yes. On 19, the authority, during the review of the application, found the applicant to be engaging in illegal petroleum product supply chain operations in the following. On the 28th of June 2023, there was an inflow of $8,536,893.75, which was made to the applicant's Ecobank account from Castle Oil Limited. On the 20th of June 2023, there was also an inflow of $2,033,206.41, which was made to the applicant's Ecobank account from Clean Energy, an unlicensed OMC for payment of 50,000 liters of AGO. And on June 21st, 2023, there was an inflow of $34,148,081 made to the applicant's Ecobank account from Castle Oil on an OMC, and it was for AGO. On the 22nd of June, also 2023, there was another inflow of $6,360,559.14 made to the applicant's Ecobank account from Jar Oil and OMC for 158,400 liters of AGO. The authority fined the applicant $500,000 on the 6th of October 2023 and ordered it to stop forthwith all engagements in the petroleum supply operations, which is yet to be paid. The applicant, by a letter dated 10th of October 2023, responded to the authorities' enforcement, refuting any engagement in illegal petroleum trading activities. And they were citing the government policy on storing and lifting of petroleum products at the storage facilities in the country for transit and re-export. And that was dated on 3rd July 2023. What they were referring to, provides that the national traders or depositors are not required to hold license to store their products at any terminal in the country. On the 14th of August, the authority wrote a letter before action to claim the outstanding administrative fine imposed to be paid within 30 days, failure of which legal proceedings will be commenced.
Thank you, Mr. Ba. The first question will be, how was the fine of $500,000 reached?
I will allow legal to answer that.
So it was determined by the enforcement regulation, which is what we use as a guide when determining the so it was set. The fine is set by the enforcement regulations 500,000 and a daily fine of 25,000 if they fail to comply after the 14 days when it has become due.
Thank you. And Mr. Ban, as per your submissions, Article 21 on page 5. No, let's start from Article 20. Ultimate Building Logistics were fined on the 6th of October 2023. That's as per the provisions of Article 20. They responded on the 10th of October 2023, citing a policy. After that response on the 10th of October 2023, if you move to page 6, it took almost 1 year and 4 days for the authority, I would say, it took almost 11 months for the authority to write back to ultimate page. And in specific terms, the issue was only reopened on the 14th of October 2024. August. 14th of August 2024, when a letter before order to action was sent to them. Why the delay?
I think there is a history in that.
I think that was when management just made the decision that it's important to go ahead and ensure that these enforcement fines are recovered, because they've been given enough opportunity to comply and they did not comply. So we thought it's important to make sure that they comply.
What's your name again? Sorry.
Emma Menu.
Emma, as of the 10th of October 2023, it was clear to the authority that ultimate page were never going to pay, because they contested your findings, and in fact they didn't only contest it, they sent you a letter. That letter is enclosed in your submission. They sent you the letter on the 10th of October 2023. Sorry? Okay. In the letter, they stated, and I will read verbatim, they said, it was addressed to the Director General PURA, the Gambia, dated 10th of October 2023. We want to state that we refute the grievous accusations made by the authority, and that Ultimate Beach Logistics has never engaged in any illegal trading activities in the Gambia, as against Section 6, Subsection 2 of the Petroleum Act 2016. This was sufficient, and the letter follows. This was sufficient to indicate that they have no intention of paying you since last year. So the question again, why the undue delayance in your enforcement?
Yes, like Emma said, and also we had hinted that there is a big history behind this. When we get the enforcement, they responded, but in between there was a policy, a government policy from the Ministry of Petroleum and Energy that has to deal with some of these issues, and then PURA was tied up. I mean, like, so if you do an enforcement and there's a government policy, you have to withhold.
When was the government policy passed?
The government policy was passed on the 30th of October 2023.
Which means?
It's just a few weeks.
No, which means Ultimate Beach Logistics cannot use the government policy as a backup. Was the government policy retroactive?
No, but once there is a government policy.
No, allow me. There was a law before the coming into force of the government policy.
Yes.
That was a law. And clearly, Ultimate Beach Logistics were found wanting and fined on the 6th of October. And the narrations to that fine indicated a transaction which commenced on the 20th of June 2023. And then there was another transaction on that day, the same day, and another transaction and inflow from Castor on the 21st of June 2023, and another inflow from Jaboy on the 22nd of June. So now my question is, please just answer the question directly. Just answer the question that is asked. My question is, how does a government policy that came into force in October affect the actions of an OMC that happened in June of 2023?
You see, the government, this letter that was dated this is to PURA, but the government policy was actually in 14th September 2023. That's what I'm saying. I mean, like, yes, there were, I can give you a copy of this, but if you read it against the backdrop that, you know, the reference of the was dated here on the 14th. But not
still, can I help? Because I want you to answer the question. If the government policy came on the 14th of September, let's look at the dates that Ultimate Beach did the illegal activities. And I will quote from what the authority said on page 5, article 19. It states, the authority during the review of the application found the applicant to be engaged in illegal petroleum product supply chain operations as follows. On the 20th of June 2023, an inflow of 8.5 million. I move on the 20th of June 2023 again, there was an inflow of 2,003,206.41 bottles. And then I move again on the 21st of June 2023, another inflow of 34 million. And then we move again to the last one on the 22nd of June. All of these dates are before the 14th of September. So the question still stands. How does a policy that came in September affects the accuracy or the inaccuracy of a transaction that happens in June?
You see, when these transactions were done, PURA was not in a position to know it. PURA got to know about this transaction when they applied and we were doing review of their financial statement. It was not like, okay, we were aware of the transaction as at when it was happening. When they submit their application, one of the requirements is to submit a bank statement.
Mr. Yeah, you know we applaud you for coming across this transaction.
Yeah.
We applaud you very well because this is your responsibility. Now we are saying, after knowing it and after being applauded, what did you do?
We sent in an enforcement.
You sent in an enforcement on the 6th of October 2023. You find them.
Yes.
They responded to you on the 10th of October and nothing came. Now I will ask you a deliberate question. Is it that you will be opened the case on the 14th of August because of this parliamentary inquiry?
No, I mean, it is.
Now then tell us why there was a total silence between October of 2023 to August of 2024.
Because this government policy was actually discussed after the new minister came in. I mean, and when the new minister came in, we decided that okay, we have to enforce because that was the basis that they were using.
Is it your submission that the policy of the minister was meant to influence your decision on this particular file? No, you cannot have it both ways. Okay, let me help you. We have an open mind in this inquiry.
Yeah.
You all have jobs to do. We sit here as public servants.
Yes.
To sit in the offices as civil servants. We are all employed by the state. We do not have any motive against anybody. We were not there when these things were happening. That's why we are not asking you any question that will incriminate you. All the questions that are being asked is leading us to the truth. You said that when the new minister came, the policy was discarded.
Yeah.
And because of that, Now you believe you can follow the recovery of the fine. That is a direct admission to the fact that the only hindering factor towards having this fine being paid was the policy. That is what you are implying. If I am wrong, then correct me and you state the facts right.
No, whether that was the main objective of the minister or the ministry.
No, we are not talking about the objective of the minister or the ministry. What we are asking you is, what was hindering PURA from making these recoveries? And it is your submission that you only have the motivation to go after recovering this fine after the current minister discarded the policy. Was that not what you just said?
Yeah, but basically we are a regulatory authority. So we regulate based on we regulate based on acts, based on government policies. We regulate based on regulations, guidelines, and so. If there is a government policy that goes against one of our enforcement, yes, to some extent we can't go and start enforcing.
The policy of either the 14th of September or the 30th of October go against your enforcement of the $500,000 fine to ultimate page?
Not the fine, but the cost of the fine. Somehow, yes.
Can you tell us the difference between the two and tell us directly what it did go against?
Because the act of the fine was before the regulation, before the policy came into being. But now the enforcement, before we start enforcing the fine, actually the policy was intervened. So that is the difference. So you might cause a crime before a law is enacted. So, but what we are saying now, the enforcement itself, the coming into the of the policy had made us very difficult now pursue that fine. That's what I'm saying. But,
no. We'll finish this.
Okay.
Let's just finish this before we move somewhere. In absolute terms, now you are telling the committee that indeed the policy did hinder the efforts of PURA to recover the fine.
Somehow, yes.
Somehow?
Yes.
Yes. How?
Yeah, I've explained that several times. I mean, yes, PURA detected this during a review. We sent in an enforcement letter. They came back with a response to say they have not done anything, citing a document. Yeah. If, for example, we had started the enforcement before the policy came in, now it becomes.
After receiving that response from them, what did you do?
Yes, we have been engaging them. I think the legal department can explain. We have called them to a meeting. We have explained to them. But however, at some point in time, somehow, we couldn't.
Have you ever consulted the previous minister on this?
About ultimate base?
Ultimate base, the fine, and the policy?
No, I don't think so.
No, I mean, have you ever
consulted the former minister about it?
Yes.
No, I don't think so.
Have you ever had an internal meeting in PURA where the issue of this particular fine came on the table and it was concluded that what is stopping you from making the recoveries was the government policy? Have you ever had a meeting to that?
To specifically that, no.
Have you ever, as an agent of PURA, had a discussion with your senior management or your next in command or the MD of PURA, citing the policy of government as the main hindering factor towards the recovery of this fine of 500,000?
For severally I have not personally, but severally we have discussed in PURA about.
No, I asked you whether you ever had a meeting. You said no.
Meeting with, you said?
Internally in PURA. Have you ever had that meeting?
You said specifically, and you spoke about the conclusion of the meeting, and that is why I said no, to conclude that. Yes, to talk about the ultimate best, to talk about grid energy, we had several meetings about it, and we have discussed about their fines, and we have discussed severally about, you know, the fine against the government policy. I mean, so many other issues about it.
Now tell us, what was the understanding of PURA in relation to the fine and the government policy?
The government policy, I mean, basically, I don't want to take a position here for PURA as a president.
No, you would, because you are, no, allow me. You are not speaking as a person. This is PURA, and you are the management of PURA.
Yeah.
It's because of your actions or inactions why we are still not able to recover this 500,000, and we need to know what your understanding was. That is not that is PURA now. So you have to tell us, during those meetings, what was the understanding, or what was the conclusion of PURA with regards to the government policy and the $500,000 fine?
And that is why I am telling you that I will give you to the legal department who are responsible for the enforcement of the fines to explain that to you. Is that okay with you?
Yes, let's go to the legal department.
Thank you very much. I think to answer your question, no, it's not the inquiry that led us into doing this letter before action. The law gives us the power to enforce, do enforcements when there are failings. And the law, I also understand, know that it understands that there will be, of course, participants that will not comply, and it also gives us the power to institute legal actions to recover those. So we had several meetings, and it's just not ultimate bench or creep, but we had to do an audit of all pending enforcements that we have and whose fines are not recovered. And management made a decision that send a letter of action to all of these, and then we are going to take a lawyer to make sure we institute action to recover these fines. So that is what triggered this, and it's not specific for this particular case, but for all enforcements that we have pending.
We understand that very well, and that's a fair statement. But we are taking this from the earlier submissions made by Mr. What's his name? Mr. Gett. Mr. Gett indicate when he was asked the question, why the undue delays? Since the 10th of October 2023, there was no action from PURA, no communication up to the 14th of October. He said, intermittently, there was a government policy. And it was his submission also that because the new minister who came in discarded the previous policy that was adopted on the 14th of September. And that went to imply that indeed the policy was a hindering factor towards the recovery of fine of 500,000 levied on ultimate wage. So now what we need is a confirmation as to say whether that policy did indeed override the law.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't?
No.
No. So why the undue delays?
I think we would accept that definitely, yes, there was a delay, but I'd say it's really mainly because of budgetary constraints. Because because of our job, we have a lot of enforcements that we do. So if we have to take a lawyer every time to recover action, it's going to cost a lot of money to do that. So what we do is, over time, we do an audit of pending enforcements that we have, and management make a decision, let's go ahead and recover these. Sometimes you'll have enforcement that will last for a period of 3 months, and then the offender will come and comply with the enforcement. So we said, because we're a regulator, it's important to ensure that there is supportive action in what we are doing. Yes, we do want to enforce, but the end goal is compliance. So we give them time and see they are going to comply, which is why before in August, when we did an audit, we presented that these are the pending enforcements that we have. It's important to take action on them because enough time has actually now passed, and it's important that we go ahead to recover those, which is why we started it now. So we could have done it 3 months ago or 6 months ago or immediately it happened, but that would have meant every enforcement that we did, we will immediately have to start the process of instituting action to make sure the fines are recovered. We were just allowing time, but it's something that we can improve on, really.
That's a fair submission. And when you have legal cases, which lawyer do you contract?
So we don't have any particular lawyer. It depends on the case at hand, and then we engage with different lawyers to see who is best suited to represent us in that. So we don't have a permanent lawyer, a retainer for PURA.
A lot of reference have been made to the policy by ultimate wage and by PURA, both in the oral submissions and in the statement that was provided as the legal personnel at PURA. What was your interpretation of the policy with regards to the recent happenings in the petroleum industry?
We feel like as a regulator, the policy did indeed affect some of our action, because as a regulator for the government, it's important to put up a united front. And if you have a policy that is somewhat tying your hands as to what you can do as a regulator, it makes it very difficult. Because on one hand, you don't want to go against policy, because they do have the mandate under the law to set the policy direction of the regulated entity. So then it gives us an issue. Where do we balance out this is what the law is saying, this is what policy is saying. So it really does affect some of our work.
Were you consulted?
With the policy?
With the policy?
No, we weren't.
After the policy came into force, did you have any engagements with the ministry where you were given the opportunity to really express your opinion?
We had a particular meeting where we explained that some of these are some of the challenges that we were having. Yes, we did explain that this is actually affecting our work as the economic and technical regulator of the petroleum sector.
What was the outcome of that meeting?
That going forward, they'll improve and ensure that we are consulted in actions before they make them. But
outcome, I mean in specific terms to the policy itself.
The policy was still upheld until the minister was changed.
What is the fate of that policy right now? Is it still in force?
Yes, it's still in force.
It is still in force?
Yeah.
Okay.
I really need to use the restroom.
Okay, you are excused. Okay, so ultimately, logistics. On the 14th of August, you wrote to them a letter before action indicating no intent should they not pay or refuse to respond to the letter. Today is the 3rd of September. Have they paid?
No.
Have they paid the fine?
No.
Have they responded to your formal request?
No.
What is PURA doing right now?
We're waiting for the 30 days to elapse so we can instruct our lawyer to start to commence the suit.
Now let's move to clean energy. The end did indicate that he was clean energy, so we'll be interested to know what do you know about clean energy.
Clean energy is also very much similar to Ultimate Besh. We detected the illegal action that was going on with Creed when they applied for an importation license.
Sorry, can you take that again?
So Creed energy is very much similar to Ultimate Besh. We also detected the illegal activities that was going on with Creed when they made an application for an importation license. So we also enforced against Creed, similar to Ultimate Besh. they were more cooperative with the regulator because they wrote after our enforcement, admitting liability that they weren't very much aware that this was the requirement that they had to do, and that we should give them time to comply with an extension of time to pay the fine and comply with the regulation. So they were issued a letter telling them that we are going to give them an extension of time and that they should pay it within a period of 1 month. But unfortunately, after that, they did not comply with the payment and they didn't make the payment, which is why we also thought it was important to include them as part of the pending enforcements that we did in
So precisely when was created, when did create reply to you?
Just a moment, please. 11th of October.
11th of October. Can you direct us to the page?
Page 4, paragraph 15.
Page 4, paragraph 15.
Yes.
Okay. And then from the 11th of October 2023, there was no action from the authority up to the 14th of August 2024.
Oh no, we wrote to them in January.
In January?
Yes.
But that is not contract.
Yeah. Our apologies, yes.
Okay. So from January again up to August, have they responded to your letter?
In January, no, they didn't.
No, I mean the letter of the 14th of August, did they pay you?
No.
Have they responded to the letter?
No.
So you are still waiting for the 30 days to elapse so that you can initiate action.
Yes.
Create energy, apology, and ultimate page. Yes. Have you established any trend during your investigation?
Yes.
Can you tell us?
Because in both their applications, they all stated that they were doing the sales on behalf of Apodi, who is a trader. So that is the connection that they have with Apodi, which is also part of the reason when we received the application for Apodi, even though now it's Apodi Limited Gambia. We said it's important to put it on hold and wait until this investigation is determined, because we technically they've met all the requirements, but we don't want to start a process that will legitimize an investigation that is already ongoing and is not yet coming to stage.
So the relationship you established between Apodi and these other two companies, they were all working together.
They were all working for Apodi, yes. That's what they both stated in their application.
They were all working for Apodi. And in fact, the petroleum products they were selling it on behalf of Apodi.
Yes.
Without having the required license.
Yes.
So, is it a coincidence?
What coincidence? Go ahead.
I would ask the question again. Is it a coincidence that after denying ultimate wage and clean energy license, Apodi decides to surface and make applications for himself?
It could be. That would just be an assumption I'll be making, because again, it's not Apodi FZE, it is Apodi Limited Gambia. So it could be a coincidence, but
in the solution you said 99% of Apodi Gambia Limited is owned by Apodi FZC.
yes.
So then we are talking about Apodi FZC, because the minority interest of 1% is absolutely insignificant.
We can infer that then. Yes.
So that's why I will ask the question again. Is it a coincidence that after PURA,
We can infer it's a coincidence.
thank you, then you moved to crossbreed. Have you issued license to crossbreed? Did PURA issue any license to crossbreed?
Yes.
What conditions of the license issued?
Just give me a moment, please. CrossFit have an importation license that was issued in 31st of March 2021.
31st of March 2021?
Yes. And the terms of the license will be similar to any other importation license.
And that would be?
That would be to comply with all the regulations to import a minimum quantity, right? Yeah.
And what would the regulation to import a minimum quantity?
It is in the importation regulations. I do not have the numbers okay.
We are asking for specific guidance so that you understand the conditions to enable us on with these supplementary questions.
20,000 metric tons annually.
20,000?
Metric tons annually. Yes, so it's in section 20 of the importation regulations.
Can you take us through that? Section 20? In full, huh?
Do you want me to read it out? Do you want me to read out section 20?
In full. You can read it out in full.
Says general conditions for trade. 20 subsection 1 says a person who intends to trade in petroleum products shall submit to the authority an import plan of at least 12 months. That's A. B. Except for liquefied petroleum gas, import at least 20 million liters of petroleum products each year. In the case of LPG, import at least 400 metric tons of it each year. These submit data every month on sales of petroleum products. E. Maintain at least 2 months operational stock as part of the national efforts to maintain security of supply. F. At all times hold in stock at the storage depot facility security stocks as follows. And then you have 1. In the first year of the person's operation as determined by the authorities. 2 says after the first year of the person's operation based on that person's sale in the previous year. And you have paragraph E that says participate in any national emergency plan to mitigate the effect of crisis and follow such lawful directions that the authority may give from time to time. H. Have a storage service agreement with a bonded facility in the Gambia. And subsection 2 says, in addition, the authority may require a person to provide proof of one of the following. A. A sales volume of at least 15 million liters per year of white oil products in the Gambia. B. The ownership of at least 3 licensed, certified and operational service stations. C. The ownership of lease of 1 licensed petroleum depot facility. Or a storage service agreement with a bonded facility.
Is there any provisions in the regulation or in the act that would make the license to be transferable?
Yes.
Can you tell us how?
You apply to the authority. who will review the application for transfer of license and make a recommendation to the minister.
Have you ever received such an application from Crossbreed?
No.
You've never? No.
No.
We're not asking to any specific individual. We're just asking whether you've ever received an application from Crossbreed indicating their intent to transfer their license.
No.
Is there any provisions in the regulation or the law that can allow the license to be used in an avenue of franchise?
No.
Thank you. In my submission, would you like to say that you did say that ultimate bid was registered on the 31st of March 2021?
The date, sorry?
31st of March 2021.
Registered as?
When was CREED registered?
Registered as what?
Issued license.
Oh. Are you talking about CREED or Crossbreed? Sorry, I'm getting a bit.
No, I'm going back to CREED now. I'm done with Crossbreed.
So CREED hasn't been issued a license?
CREED haven't been issued a license?
No.
Okay. What about ultimate bid?
No.
You haven't been issued a license?
Yes.
Crossbreed, when did you receive their license?
March of 2021.
March of 2021. That is in order. What actions did PURA take to address complaints that are raised by OMCs relating to Abode's presence at the depot? When I say the depot, I will start with Scam Petroleum.
Can you please repeat the question?
Did you receive any complaint from OMCs with regards to the entire usage and the GP depot in Mandinari being issued to Abode?
Yes, we did.
Who are the OMCs? Can you give us a list, the names of those OMCs?
We have from Oris and Java.
Oris and Java. Do you have the dates? Oris, when did you receive their complaint?
Just a second. I think it's 18th of July, 2023.
Sorry?
18th of July.
For which one?
From Java.
From Java. 18th of July?
2023.
2023.
But I'd like to confirm the dates after this because.
We will ask for formal submissions of those letters for Oris.
Okay. I don't have the exact date for Oryx here.
Can you remember details of those letters received from these two OMCs?
Right.
Yes.
So basically, the context of both letters from Jawel and Oryx were similar. They were all related to village allocation at the depot, and this also coincides with the consignment that was received by the depot from Aboji. Within the same period, we also discovered the operations of the illegal operations of Ultimate Lodge and CREED. And unfortunately, it was the same period that the policy we are talking about from the ministry was also passed. So all these happenings was within the same period, May, June, dragged towards October. So when we received the complaint from colleagues, and then followed Yahweh. We did our investigation, and there was a committee that was internally formed because the impression we have was that that was really anti-competitive when it comes to knowledge allocation mechanisms at the table. So the committee gathered a lot of information from the table in terms of their knowledge allocation procedures and guidelines, and that was compared with what the complainant submitted to PURA. And I think we have shared the determination that was made regarding Yahweh. There's a similar one for Oryx also, with a couple of recommendations. But these also coincide, as I said, with the policy that was passed by the ministry. We basically focus generally on national stock rather than allocation on open access basis. So our emphasis was on open access basis, but as my colleague here said, not specifically on the policy affecting enforcement, but on allocation mechanism at the table. So this was one of the challenges we face in terms of the regulatory intervention that we specifically wanted to take to address this company.
You indicated three things. You said at the time of the receipt of these complaints from Java and Oryx, it coincided with the deposit of petroleum products owned by Abudi. It also coincided with the government policy, and this also coincided with the time that both Clean Energy and Ultimate Beach filed in applications to PURA and later realized that they were in fact dealing in petroleum products without the license. But what we want to concentrate the most is, you said it was anti-competitive, and the position of the authority was what? A fair play, giving all actors equal opportunities. But according to your submission, the policy was more or less about having access to what? Products, availability of products, rather than having open space access. Can you add more context to that? Why do you think that the position of the authority with regards to ensuring that all the players in the field have equal opportunities when it comes to usage space was against the policy that was given more emphasis on the availability of products?
Let me start with our position first in terms of related allocation and force serve basis. I think from a regulatory perspective, that needs to be encouraged because we give license to so many players, and it's only fair that the one who comes first should be served first by the airport. So, meaning the airport should have an independent position in such an arrangement. So relating that to the policy, the policy's focus is only on national security. So that means you might have one operator to fill the whole storage space that is available. So that's going to stifle the other players in the market, which is not a good indicator when it comes to our regulatory principles. So this is basically that we could have in IS, but not the overall goal of the policy. That's also a regulatory objective to have national security. But how is this done? It has to be done through a process which promotes fair competition within the market. And for us, in principle, that is what will drive sustainability in the market. Does it make sense to have one individual or MC or a trader filling the whole space and others stifled which is going to affect the whole value chain. So this is the overall impact implications that we analyzed as a regulator. We were looking at the global effect it will have in the market in terms of competition, rather than just focusing on national security, but how do we earn that national security and maintain sustainability in the market.
Was your position reflected in your investigative report?
Yes, our regulations are there. Our recommendations in the report are detailed in. And as I said, we have the recommendations and they are not fully implemented.
Who were served with this report?
The report, the complainants, myself.
That is
yes, our legal department will portray more on those who received the report. But the report was meant for the complainants, and then copy the relevant stakeholders, our line ministry, and also the ministry responsible for this sector. But our legal department could portray on maybe if there is any other stakeholder.
Your line ministry will be the Ministry of Petroleum and Energy?
No, our line ministry is Finance.
Minister of Finance.
And the sector ministry is Minister of Petroleum.
Minister of Petroleum
and Energy.
And Energy. And was a copy sent to the depot as well? Yes, in your absence, we were asking who were served with your investigative report after receiving complaints from the OMCs.
With the?
With the report. Who did you serve the report?
So the report wasn't sent out. The report was drafted. A decision was made to send the report out, and then the issue of this thing came, the policy.
If I hear you correctly, the report was to reflect the position of the authority with regards to the complaints received from the ONCs and the policy itself. Is that right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you give us a moment to breathe?
Yes, you can.
So, there are two.
The legal one was requested for Java's and then the other one is supposed to be the policy.
Yes, sir. And this, in fact, I'm going to make another request for you to add to this. That is for them to submit this particular investigative report to the Joint Committee. The investigative report on the complaints by Jawel and Onyx. That is another action.
I was saying for clarification on right now you are on Java's data.
Yes.
And the next one.
Will be to have to submit the investigative report.
Yeah, I mean the police data, this one we have the date for Java's data.
Yes.
Now the police data.
The Onyx letter, they will send that one. And I'm making another proposal. For us, you've got.
That is request for investigation report on complaints from Java and others.
Perfect. Yes, you have the floor.
Yes. The first directive, it was sent. I'm sorry, I missed the first one. That's why I didn't put it. But there was a directive that was sent to Petroleum and to all the OMCs that they directed to ensure that relief is given on first-come, basis. So all those that were required to be served were served with a directive.
And who would be those required to be served?
Petroleum, all the OMCs, and the Ministry of Petroleum was in copy.
Was copied as well?
Yes.
Okay, can we have that directive also forwarded to the Joint Committee?
Yes.
Yes, and
Directive
on ULIC.
And did you realize any shift in regards to the mechanism in which ullage was being issued after your directives?
Yes, there are improvements. One of the improvements in terms of transparency is we are copied. If there is any ullage application made, we make sure that we are in the loop. We are copied by the depots that this is the amount applied and this is what is approved. So in terms of transparency, that was lacking, but after our interim order, that has been part of the process now. And based on the information that we received, I think that has improved. But we cannot say it's as we wanted so far, because we are in the process of developing regulation. The procedures and guidelines are set by the depot itself. As I told you, this is a challenge that we are still trying to craft. The depot coming into existence without the regulations was a challenge for us. And to have that independence in the market, because we have another player, we are in the process of coming up with an ullage regulation, which is going to guide the whole market rather than just the depot having their own internal guidelines and procedures for ullage. So the directive we sent was an interim order before we come up with this full regulation.
Do they only send you the approvals, or they send you the entire applications indicating the approvals and the denials? In fact, the whole communication of the application process, we are copied. So if a trader is applying, for example, or an OMC is applying on behalf of a trader, the email we are copied that I'm applying for ullage and this is the volume that they are applying for. And the reply from the depot also we are copied. If that amount is approved, they indicate that this amount is approved. In the communications you've received, have you come across any denials?
Unless we go and verify the email trace, because it's a lot, but hardly we can see any denial so far.
Can you give us names of some OMCs whose emails you are privy to?
Oryx, and then acting mostly on behalf of others as a trader.
In further terms on average, what is the status of the applications?
I cannot give a consistent answer with regards to that, but in terms of their applications, it's really very frequent. Ullage allocation.
In terms of ullage applications?
Yes.
Does that mean to say frequently now they are getting ullage approvals?
Not frequently. I mean their applications for ullage, meaning they are a regular importer or OMC when it comes to importation. Yeah.
How frequent, how often do they have approvals?
Yeah, all the ones that we are privy to, they are all approved. The space is there.
And when would that shift in mechanism happen? Which what precisely, I mean?
We have to verify that.
Is it published 1 year now?
Yes. The interim order was passed in 2023. It's 1 year now. Yeah.
Okay. Chairman, that's very truthful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, there's been a matter of interpretation. Before I open the honorable members, supplementary questions. Let me refer you to the statement, page 3. Article 13. That has to do with the authority during the license application review found in the applicant's business plan. In 9 section 1.5 that the company, in collaboration with the partners, recently got a vessel of 32,000 in bracket 36,000 metric tons to the Gambia for the sale in the local market. And they export to the sub-regional market. Clarification in what is 32 and in figure is 36. So which is it? $36,000. In the petition sent to us, the quality of the product is 36,905.614.
Yes.
Can you confirm?
This particular part was deleted from their business plan that they sent from the office. This particular part, the 36,
okay.
It was lifted from the business plan that they sent to us verbatim. So we didn't change anything.
Honorable members, can we start from here and ask you? Remember, please, if the question has been answered, you can line forward. There we go.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for helping us to get answers to some of the ways we were to have before us today. Now, just a few minutes ago, Honorable Fofana did ask a question about the cross-breed license. I think you said it was issued a license in 2021. Is that correct? Do you have a copy of the license with you? Yeah. Okay. No, we have already. I just wanted to make reference so that you see what I'm talking about. Does anyone have a copy of the license? Just hold on so that we can. Just a minute. Let's get to the license so that we can. Class, is the license handy with any of you? It looks like this.
For crossbreed?
Yeah. You are? Okay, yes, can do. Yes. Now, if you look at we have the subtitle, right? This license may be cited as Petroleum Products license, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then you go one interpretation, right? And then you go further, it says the licensee means cross-breed only.
Yes.
Company limited, limited liability company, right? Then you go to number 2, number 3, and number 4. Number 4 is said grant of license.
Yes.
The Honorable Minister for Petroleum and Energy, pursuant to Section 4 of the Act and upon the recommendation, PURA, pursuant to Section 19 of the PURA Act, hereby grants the license to?
Crossbreed.
No. Say, check.
Oh, crew. Okay, that's a typo. Crew breed.
Crew breed.
Yes.
So who is the licensee here then? But the names are completely different.
It's crossbreed.
And this license was signed by the minister and also by PURA. So can we say that this license is not valid?
No, you cannot say that. It is valid.
How? Because the names are very different.
Not very different. The only difference is 2S.
But Emma Mendy and Emma Gomez are not the same.
But this is not Emma Mendy and Emma Gomez.
But we have crossbreed and crew breed.
Yes. So you can easily infer that because in everywhere that we've said it's crossfeed, except for one.
Yeah.
So one is not adequate to invalidate a license.
So it doesn't make a difference.
It does make a difference, but it is a reasonable error that can be corrected.
Who prepares this? Is it the ministry or is it PURA prepares? PURA you prepare and give them.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a very serious one. Okay. Now, going through the whole sector itself, in terms of the regulatory framework, we understand the minister is responsible for issuing the licenses, but you also have a role in the ensuring, the regulation are actually adhered to. Have you seen any gap in terms legal gaps? I mean, in terms of the entire sector, from the Acts of Parliament of PURA, from the Petroleum Commission Act, from the regulations of 2018. Generally, have you seen any gap where we need to actually fix legally?
Certainly.
Can you give us some of them, whether it's from the PURA Act or from the Commission Act or from the regulations, where there's a gap that we need to look at?
One of them will be the regulation. We don't have any regulation for UV. That is getting into one gap. Another gap is on the. Sometimes when you look at the provisions of the regulations, you will see the interchanging use of permit and license at the same time. So now it's really open to interpretation. Are they actually referring to a permit or is it a license? Another issue is best practice would determine that at least we should have had what is it called? A licensing regulation that will detail out what procedure we take in terms of license application. Another issue is enforcement regulation. The enforcement regulation was drafted in 2010 and really looks at the issues that we were regulating in PURA at the time. And now 2016 came, Petroleum is onboarded onto PURA, and we haven't really had the opportunity to review the enforcement regulation to make sure that issues in petroleum sector are adequately addressed in the regulations.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. So it means there are some issues that we really need to sort out in terms of the legal framework of PURA. Now, a few minutes ago also about the fine. That was meted on these people of 500,000. And we are also aware that you are dealing with an institution. The capacity we're talking about is almost like over 1.5 billion. So how about the fines that you actually impose on these people? Are those success? Because knowing the volume, knowing the magnitude, somebody deals with 1.5 billion and then you're going to fine 500,000. And in fact, they tell you to give them 1 month extension. How do you see that?
I totally agree, which is why I mentioned earlier, these are some of the regulations, because if it was actually looking at petroleum, when the petroleum sector was onboarded onto PURA, and you actually look at enforcement for the petroleum sector, I believe 100% that the fines would have been different from what we are looking at right now. But as a regulator, our hands are tied to make sure we work according to the dictates of the law. And that is the tool that we have to use at the moment, which is why we have no choice but to make sure we cannot go and impose a fine that is not set by the regulations.
Are these some of the recommendations that you make to the ministry, because they're the ones that are responsible to bring this law to Parliament?
Absolutely.
And perhaps fine and confiscation. Now that's very common. Like for example, if you go into the areas of like corruption and stuff like that, you see they are fine and also confiscated proceeds also as well. So maybe perhaps that's one of the areas you need to look at. Now, finally, generally, is PURA in a good position? We have the regulation of the petroleum industry. Are they in a very good position, knowing that they have the Petroleum Commission that was also enacted last year by the Parliament? Is PURA in a very good position in terms of capacity, in terms of financial are you in a good position to be able to monitor the regulations of the petroleum sector generally?
I think generally no institution in Gambia is adequately resourced to regulate the downstream petroleum. And petroleum is really a school. You have to keep improving and changing as it goes. And the Petroleum Commission, yes, they may have a lot of information and knowledge when it comes to the upstream and midstream, but they still have huge gaps when it comes to the downstream. PURA might be, if actually resourced properly, the legislative framework is developed adequately, the governance structure is developed properly, then I think it is actually the best institution to regulate the downstream. But all of these are missing, and that cuts across all the sectors of government right now.
And finally, in terms of the products that are coming to the country, what is your role from the importation, from where they load it and where they unload it in the country? What role does PURA play from the loading outside the Gambia to unloading in the country? What role do you actually play?
I think we play very little role from loading outside of the country. We depend on the certification that they bring, but I think the Director of Petroleum will be in a better position to answer that question.
So, in terms of quality assurance, as I said, if we have a vessel, according to the regulations, before the vessel discharge, there should be a quality analysis. That's what the law says. And across the value chain to the end user, we should also be monitoring the quality based on the national specifications. But I think we have been working around resources. We don't have a lab here. And what the regulation says is you need an accredited laboratory to do those analyses. If the resource needs to be used, for example, for enforcement. So that's one of the gaps we have at, I think, as a government. And as a stopgap measure, what we have been doing since we took over the petroleum downstream is we, on a quarterly basis, we collect samples across the value chain. That's just for quality assurance. It is different from quality control, which is routine. So we collect samples, take them to STS, they do the analysis through an accredited lab. We get the results and monitor the trends in terms of quality. So that's the existing arrangement. Recently, we have been trying to mobilize for a national lab here, and there is one of these investors we have, Synergy Minerals. Just last week, they made a presentation at PURA that they have brought in a lot of the equipment needed for them to establish a lab at the GPS level. So we are in that process of working with them to make sure that if they have a lab, there will be these principles of independence for the results to be accepted in the industry and for the results to be credible. So that's the way forward. If we get the lab, we will be able to have that MOU with them. They will test on our behalf, and then we will monitor from the vessel to the end user.
Thank you very much. My name is Honorable Amanda Jiva. I came late to I will just introduce myself for the benefit of members of the program. My first question is, as per the letter that was written with the statement by PURA, a letter was written to Green Energy and Ultimate Big Logistic on the 14th of August 2024. We want you to provide us where their letters delivered to these two companies, Green Energy and Ultimate Big. If so, can you provide this committee their permanent location and their address? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Secondly, also,
the permanent address and
the location of both Green and Ultimate Big. Yes. They said yes, they will. Yeah, they said they will provide.
Okay, that will be added to the list of
thank you. The other thing also, can you tell us whether in the month of April, May, June, was there any fuel scarcity announced that the Gambia is facing fuel shortage? Can you inform this committee? Was there any announcement made of fuel shortage within the month of April, May to June 2024? Are you aware of any? Either yes or no?
Yes, we are aware.
That there was fuel shortage?
There was shortage. Of jet, to be more specific. Jet air fuel, to be more specific.
Jet air fuel.
Yeah.
The other thing also, looking at the cognizance of complaints from OMCs, in terms of the ULA issue, at the Gulf Petroleum, where they've allegedly said it's monopolized by Gulf Petroleum. We've received evidence that when they wrote to complain to Gulf Petroleum, a letter with a short line insinuating they know of their requests or what they are alleged is not true. Secondly, they've also made their own assessment and realized that there are space in which they knew that what the monopoly the government is claiming is not in the right direction. We've also been informed that a complaint was they wrote to PURA to avert the situation. But the submission made was it was not effectively addressed. Can you tell us why? Why was it not effectively addressed? Is it based on the powers vested by Gulf Petroleum to select who they want to be, or why was it not addressed?
I would say one of the reasons is, again, lack of regulation. Because really, when they complain about this, what we will really check is it fair? How do we do it? But there is really no document right now that is saying this is how exactly they have to go in terms of, at least from the authority, they have to go with that. So there are some challenges with our legal framework which is affecting some of the decisions that we have to make as a regulator.
So is it fair to say that Gulf Petroleum can dictate as of now to say, okay, I wish to give whoever I want, so far there is no regulation, and there will be no, a punishment made to say, okay, in as much as assessment is made, it's clear that you are keeping someone. When someone is in need, as PURA, you cannot make any decision on that.
We can certainly make decisions on that, because if you look at PURA money, it cuts across different requirements, and one of them is monitoring anti-competitive practices and making sure that they operate fairly. So if they make a decision like that, that is going to have a negative impact on competition, we can step in as a regulator and make a decision in that regard.
Onto that, do you have any hitches in terms of enforcing the current status of Gulf Petroleum leadership in terms of complaints coming, you enforcing? Are there any difficulties that you encounter as a regulator?
There is difficulties with enforcement across the sector, not just with Gulf Petroleum, but really across. I think it's just the usual resistance to enforcement, which you would find with any regulator that you go to. Which is why there are provisions in place. If there are no if you enforce and there are no compliance, what do you resort to? Which is why the law said if there are no compliance, we can institute actions to make sure that they comply.
Yes, if I get the both of you right, yes, isn't that? Yes. Yes, and you. I'm not clear of statement saying that when a fine was made about 500,000 for this agreed annuals to pay, then there were no regulation from the government, if I'm right. you wrote to inform them that they should abide to pay. They replied back themselves with the regulation. If I'm also right, he said now, currently, and he said a startup has been made again to pursue the case. As the minister, the current minister, disregarded this regulation. Is it correct?
Your question has a lot of holes. Maybe you may have...
What I'm saying is, something was seen that is not done correctly, in which PURA wrote to agree to say that you violated XYZ. In the interim, a regulation came. When you wrote to them, they wrote back.
There is already a resolution.
No policy. Yes. No, what I'm saying is, when you see that this is abnormal, there was no policy being made. Was it correct?
The policy did not affect the fine.
The policy did not affect the fine. So why is it that the fine could not make its way?
That's what I explained. The law gives us the power to impose fines, but it did not give us the power to go and freeze their account and take out the money by force and put it in your account. What the law gives us power to is, if we impose a fine and they fail to comply, we can institute legal actions to recover those fines and also ensure compliance. Which is why when it happened in 2023, we waited for a time period. I mentioned here that what we do is supportive action. Because if we have there are a lot of enforcements that have happened from 2023 to now. So what we do over time, we make an audit of enforcements, see which have complied, those that are still remaining in compliance, we try to engage them again, which is why it's important we do the letter before action. If they still fail to comply after the letter before action or any engagement, then we go ahead and institute this. So that is where we are at the moment.
Yeah, balancing the two, I'm hearing from the submission that now the current minister, if I'm right, has disregarded the said policy. If I'm right, can he assist us on that? Because I heard him saying that. I want to arrive at the point. He said the current minister has disregarded the said policy.
But it's important for us to separate the issues. The policy is on one issue, but our enforcement powers is dictated by the enforcement regulation. And as far as the law is concerned, we've enforced legally against crude oil and ultimate oil, and we are going to make sure we follow all the legal process to recover these fines.
Okay, so it means in following that you're not standing down. You're still waiting to pursue the case of free.
Yes.
That's what I want to.
Yes.
But I thought maybe based on the regulation, that's why you are unable to pursue the case. Okay, it's clear. It's fair. The last thing is I want to be clear. OMCs also complain that there are a lot of fraud. Sometimes, if, for example, they loaded vehicles are loaded at the depot, 100,000 liters to their stations. Sometimes they realize that what they said at the depot, going by their end is lesser. Cumulatively, some of them complain that it's on millions. Claims were made in which they realize that gun petroleum are defensive. They suggested to them that we'll bring experts to go to verify and see your systems that you have in place. It was denied. They couldn't accept. Later, a push were done, and they realized that what they've complained is true, and OMC was paid back of what they disregarded before. What is your role in that as Nigerians?
I think the question basically is around calibration and of course verifying the instruments that have been calibrated. We started doing an investigation. We received a complaint before, specifically from Oil, and then we did the investigation together with the Standard Bureau and with San Mesos. and of course the different institutions that are represented at the depot. And from our investigation, it was not conclusive because if it comes to calculation, these things need to be scientific. The Western measures, they can verify, but they cannot really calculate because they don't really have the instruments. So the recommendation was for the depot themselves to do their calculation, witnessed by all these key institutions. And after that, we can have the weights and measures to verify their fuel dispensing equipment. So that's one part of it. The other part is the tanker trucks themselves. So we have to follow the whole value chain. The tanker trucks also, you have their leaping sticks that needs to be calibrated. So you can see they are calibrated, but are they calibrated by weights and measures, which is something that we can accept at national level. They are not. So we have different instruments throughout the value chain to the petrol stations with different calibration status. This is the problem we have. And then as a regulator, the approach we are taking is to make sure that the instruments used at the depot are calibrated and verified. We are in that process. To be honest, one of the challenges we face is to get an institution, a third party, and we get invoices from Senegal to come and do that for us. Because what we get from the depot is not actual calibrations but maintenance certificates. We have requested that from them, and what they submitted are maintenance certificates. Their meters are there, and then on an annual basis, the company that installed the meters will come and do maintenance on the meters and certify them. That's different from calculation. What we want is calculated meters that will be verified by weights and measures, and we are in that process. We have to accept that it took us a very long period of time to make a conclusion on this and make a determination. That's a lapse on our part, but surely we are working towards resolving that issue, not only for this specific case, but going forward, because it might arise again and you will not be able to determine where the shortage is coming from. Is it the truck, maybe before getting to the petrol station, going somewhere else and reducing the amount or whatsoever, or is it coming from the depot? The only way you can know that is to make sure that one part of the value chain is well calculated and verified, and the target for us here is at the source, that's the depot.
Yes, I have two last questions, yes or no, the chair. The final one is, in terms of quality, quality of fuel going to the Gambia, like of PSTV, Annex, and Traffic Owner. How is their fuel? Is it standard or substandard?
So I think there is a quite similar question that was raised in terms of quality. The food that is coming in, we don't have a lab in the country. And one way that we ensure quality assurance is as part of them sourcing fuel, they need to submit a certificate, a quality certificate as part of their application for haulage. And then if the fuel is discharged, occasionally we do our routine test on a quarterly basis, take the samples to Senegal to just verify. So one challenge we have at the depot is you cannot really tell if this is a tank, you cannot really tell this is fuel from PSTV or this is from Fpac, this is from traffic, it's all mixed. What you can assure is the fuel that is going outside of the depot meets the national specifications. And so far, most of the time it does. The only challenge we still have is at the sulfur level. The sulfur level set by the National Standard Bureau, we call it 50 ppm. But all the tests we have done doesn't really meet this. So in terms of enforcement, that would be the next question you might ask. Our consideration here is the security of supply and quality assurance, because the shipments we have here have to pass through several countries before they get here. And ECOWAS region is in the process of harmonizing in terms of quality. So if, for example, Senegal, their quality threshold is 100 per 1,000 and your quality threshold is 50 ppm, you don't expect the vessel to only bring fuel of your quality when you have a smaller volume than Senegal. So this is the challenge we have, but we are in the process of engagement in terms of incremental enforcement in terms of the standards. Probably we will have to lower the standards a bit, and then gradually we'll be able to conform to the 50, but to just make that jump from the current standards to 50, we have to tell you the truth. That's really going to have a big impact in terms of the supply, which
let's try to study the response because the next few minutes is sitting outside waiting to come past school.
So in terms of quality, that's the challenge we face.
Yeah, I think let me stop here. Let me stop here. I have last final question.
Thank you very much. This is a very quick question with respect to what Honorable has deliberated on when it comes to regulation of international trades. I try to look at two things, logically, in a situation where an international trader is pumping an oil through the pipes that they lay to the reservoirs. And due to an error from the ship, a fire outbreak happened. May God forbid. When a fire outbreak happened, with insurance covers who takes care of that, and that leads to loss of lives and property.
You answered the most difficult question already. Due to an error from the ship, once you are able to determine where the error came from, then that is automatically the person that is going to be responsible.
Who regulates? Is there any regulation that says that, and who regulates that?
It's PURA regulates, but this will go beyond even just PURA, because you're now talking about civil liabilities, criminal liabilities, and if you are able to determine where the error comes from, that would be the most difficult task. Once you are able to determine who is responsible for the error, then you will be able to determine who you will ascribe liability to.
So is it correct to say you have a role to play?
Certainly.
When it comes to dealing with international traders?
No.
So why are you coming in when an error is caused by it?
So when it comes to international traders, we don't license them, but the regulation is giving them the mandate to operate within the requirements in terms of health and safety if they are on source. And when it comes to regulations, I think we have an incident a couple of years ago. There was a oil spill at the depot. Yes. So there was an oil spill, and due to that oil spill, I think the question was whether there are regulations. There was a committee that was formed, and then we have worked with GMA, and currently there is a regulation when it comes to such incidences.
In that moment, I was going to dispute it directly, because one of the reasons that, because that spillage has a lot of impact on the aquatic animals, and as well, with our mangroves, right? So there was no boom with the gig and GAM Petroleum, and which you knew about, but you did not do anything about it. Can you talk to us about that?
Well, no, actually we don't do nothing about. I I think we have mentioned that earlier, that Petroleum were in operation before we licensed them. And during the licensing process, there were so many operational requirements that we have to, that they have to meet as part of their technical requirements in the licensing process. And I think we have really worked with them towards that. For example, the piping network, trying to make sure that there is an integrity in their pipe network through pressure test, and also the submission of blood test. All those things were conducted during the licensing process. Yes, you are right. Those technical facilities or infrastructures were not in place, and it has resulted to the spill becoming a serious environmental issue, which I think all the institutions, because it was a national emergency, not something that's specifically on the regulator, but the extent that it was a national emergency, and due to the response, now a national regulation has been developed. So I think as a regulator, we have learned from that.
Mr. Director, even if regulation comes after all, later the gun petrol has been existing for a while, but provision of a boom cannot be an exemption. Boom that will help to contain what has been spilled on the waters. That cannot be an exemption. Of course, you cannot wait to say if they come before the regulation when it comes to that one. Those are issues that they just need to procure and train personnel to be able to know how they deal with that. So I think there was a heat lapse. And the lastly, there was about their pipe that they laid through which they pumped. There was a project that was ongoing to replace those pipes because they are obsolete. And in fact, they were rusted. The claim for the reason of the spillage was due to the reasons that the pipe was rusted, and therefore it could not contain the pressure, handle the pressure, then the spillage happened. But what did you do with respect to that? There was a project ongoing almost an year, and the pipes were already procured to start laying, and they refused to do that until this incident happened that leads to loss of resources at the expense of the state. Let's say where I want to relate it to, because it's their responsibility to ensure that the materials they are using are correct, and the pipe was rusted.
In fact, if that is the case, can you direct your case on the point?
No, don't expect me to ask you when you could ask.
No, I'm here, I'm trying to moderate.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. The same time.
But the way we frame questions could differ.
No, it's not about the way we frame questions. But the fact that it's proper. You get it? I think that means
where I want to
let me enable the witness also to be the point. If you go directly to the point that we are after, yes. What I'm trying to emphasize here, the emphasis you try to put around is related to issue. I'm not really sure it's related to the subject matter here.
I'm trying.
If you want to portray, you can do that, but try to make it actually to the point.
Honorable Chair, I'm trying to look at regulation to ensure that material in institution under your watch that you regulate are using. And of course, this pipe is part of the infrastructure of the depot, which of course it's your mandate to ensure that it is correct, to avoid risks which has happened. And this pipe has been obsolete for a while, and they started a project to replace it, which was not done until this incident happened. So I'm looking at your role, which you could play and that could have averted the incident that has happened. But then I know it was a heat lapse and a deep blow to all of us as a country, and so many institutions as regulators and that of the depot or failed in. But I thought you could have played a role to make sure that you please check this because it could cause something because you are the regulator. So that's why I was coming in.
Okay. Yes, I think in terms of what we have done, I think the opening you made, it's really important that it was a national disaster and we all have a stake in terms of responsibility. So in terms of the infrastructure integrity, the regulator, we look at the performance of the infrastructure. We cannot just be jumping and telling the depot change this, change that. Those are operationals. But the outcome or the performance of that infrastructure is what we are interested in. And as I said in my previous answer, we on an annual basis, we request from that disaster, we request for a pressure test of the pipes and also a blood test that we can provide, and that will give you an attestation of the performance of the infrastructure.
Okay, thank you very much. We are going to this side. Okay, that's enough.
Thank you very much. I have few sub questions. The first question: does Gulf Petroleum have an importation license? Petrol importation license?
Yes, they do.
They do. So how do you see that process? They are the referee, and then also they are a player.
I think I might have partly answered that question. We started regulating petroleum in 2016. What you would usually expect from it is once you start testing the laws and realizing that these are issues that could actually cause problems, you go back and review the regulation. But as at now, legally, there is nothing stopping them from doing that, from owning an importation license. So we've realized that this is actually an issue, which is why this year part of our work plan is to review all the legislative framework concerning the petroleum. We're currently doing a gap analysis of the petroleum regulations to see where there are gaps, what we can improve on, so that we can use that as a learning a learning tool to improve on our processes and procedures. Yes.
So meaning you are telling me you have learned something about giving Gulf Petroleum as a player and a referee a license?
They're not a referee, because we are the referee here.
Indeed, because if you look at most of these OMCs are complaining about ullage, and they are the one. If somebody needs a ullage, they are the one that's the institute Gulf Petroleum that you should contact.
I do agree.
So if you give them a license also to use a ullage, solely likely they might play monopoly.
Definitely is something we would improve on.
Okay, please try to look at that one. JT Energy, are they having a petroleum importation license? JT Energy.
GT or
JT?
Yes.
They do have?
Yes.
Okay. My last question is on the issue of the policy that we are talking about here, and then the lead question also dealt with it. Because I can see when you wrote to these various players on the illegal importation of petroleum product on the 6th of October, you wrote a legal notice to these various players. To my surprise, on the 30th of October, your parent ministry, that is the Ministry of Petroleum, also communicated another policy. So for me, and then somebody sitting where you are sitting, where are you sitting now, called that a strange. Was it strange, that policy? Because you, was that policy strange? Because strange, S-T-R-A-N-G, strange, because it is called a strange policy. And I can see you have wrote what you are doing is illegal from your parent body, wrote, trying to make a regulation, try to refer you to a policy, to refer the players to a policy. To me, how does this policy affect you?
I think I'll just go back to telling the National Assembly to empower the regulator more, because the law actually gives the ministries power to form policies. So how do you define where policies stop and where regulation is supposed to step in? Maybe these are the issues we need to look at.
But I believe the law also says before the minister can make a regulation, he must consult the authority. Where you consulted them?
No.
Did you protest against your minister?
We did. We raised this in meetings, yes.
Can we get the evidence of that?
We didn't have the minutes of those minutes of that meeting, unfortunately, but we did raise it.
But as an institution dealing with your ministry, protesting, you have a meeting, you don't have a minute of that meeting.
We did prepare this thing, a board paper, to our board highlighting some of the challenges that we were having with the Ministry of Petroleum at that time.
You have communicated with that one to your board?
Yes.
To your board members?
Yes.
So can you submit that evidence to the committee?
Certainly, yes.
Then I will request for them to submit that board resolution. Was it a resolution?
No, management paper to the board.
Management paper to the committee.
On challenges with the Ministry of Petroleum.
On their challenges with the Ministry of Energy. Okay, so the policy reference made a reference to a reference number of the policy. Do you have this policy?
Whether the policy was shared
The
with
letter communicated from the Ministry of Energy at the third paragraph, against this backdrop, and in furtherance of our letter, reference that, no BCS 101/26401 in bracket dated 14 September 2023, I hereby communicate government policy number MOPF/GP/PP 002 in bracket. Do you have this document? This policy, do you have it?
Yes.
You do have it. You do have it. Chair, then I would also submit for you to request this policy document. The one I just read, they said they have it. That the one the Ministry of communicated on the 30th October 2023. That policy. They said they have it.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm requesting for you for them to formally submit it to the committee. No, this was not the policy. This was just a letter circulated.
For the later notified about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now we are requesting the policy.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm done.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair. Now, my question just goes back to UBF and PRIS. According to the submission, they were found wanted because they are operating in the petroleum sector and they were not given answer. Now, I just want to inquire from whether you have made any investigation to know what gives them the leverage for them to operate in that sector without being given the license by the proper authority, that is PURA. Don't do any investigation to know where they drive their powers or who gave them the authority to enter into this business in this country.
We did a review of the application that was submitted to PURA. I would say that was an investigation. because it was the outcome of that review that made us take the decision that we took against them.
Did you know the entity that allowed them to operate without having a license, or you did not dig into that?
There was no entity, as far as the records that we have with us, that gave them any approval to operate in the sector, because before an entity would give that approval, they'll have to go through PURA. And if we don't have any record with us to show that we gave them that authorization, then there is none, at least legally so.
Then why are you playing? Because then I can just see them as criminals. Because they came into this country, they entered into a business, nobody allowed them to do so, and then you are the one giving them, who should have given them the lancing. You did not give them any lancing. They have operated, it means they have breached the law, and then you find them. But still now it is dragging. You cannot do anything towards this figure. So I'm happy you can at least do something, because they don't have any concrete ground to do the business. And then you were the one who should give them the go-ahead, and you did not. Now you find them and they are not paying, and they still now it's dragging. So I just want you to do something so that positive things can come out of this. Thank you.
That's not that.
Thank you, Co-Chair. PURA, since most of your response is made on limited legislation, a legislation that constrains you in the area of enforcement and issues of compliance. Going already, the petroleum industry is very lucrative, and you have experience on this thing. Do you have any plan to bring in legislation in the form of bill through your line ministry to capture all this? Because if you look at the way it is, there are a lot of things, particularly the policy on ULED policy.
Thank you very much, Honorable. I mentioned earlier that we already have in our work plan the review of all the petroleum regulations, legislation. In addition to that, even the PURA Act itself, we are currently working on reviewing it. A terms of reference has been developed and shared. It's being reviewed by management, and once it's been once it's approved, we will advertise and recruit consultants for the review of the PURA Act. In addition to that, we are also conducting a gap analysis of the petroleum regulation, and hoping with that we will be able to look for points and issues of concerns that need to be addressed by the review of the regulation.
Do you have a specific time frame for this?
For the PURA Act, it has to be done by the 4th quarter of this year, yes. For the Petroleum Act, probably is going to be early of next year, 2024. 2025, sorry.
2025, okay. During your explanation about the role and the mandate of PURA, you mentioned that you have limited monitoring. Is it as a result of the mobility issues? And again, how about the issue of complaint? How do you respond, especially if you receive an issue of complaint related to the coherence? How quickly do you respond to those?
Mobility issues is one of them. Resources is another. The number of staffing that we have, it's also, there is really a lot of issues with our monitoring and responding time to the issues that we receive in the authority.
How about a scenario whereby the complaints are very risky and this can cause a lot of life without your intervention? How do you respond to this?
We prioritize our response based on the issue that is reported or that is detected. If it is something that involves maybe spillage, we will do that immediately. I remember when it happened, staff in PURA were working overnight to ensure that that particular issue was addressed and fully contained. So it really depends on what issue that we have to deal with, and we give it the required priority.
Honorable members,
If 30 minutes to 3, I think 3 o'clock will be convenient time to close. Then 30 minutes, yeah, we can entertain new questions. Yes.
Thank you very much. Since petroleum products are not tested in the Gambia, what assures your authority that the product is standard quality?
Yeah, as said, we do intermittent quality assurance. That's one of the interventions we do. At the depot also, they have their own internal quality assurance process. They have a mini lab where they also do some tests, and based on that test, they can do a proxy to the other parameters.
And again, I would like to know what category of license did Apogee had in order to engage in petroleum business in the Gambia?
Apogee was operating as a trader, and traders are not licensed according to the regulations.
What are the type of traders existing in the petroleum market?
Most of the traders we have, they are not on our source, and they don't only operate in the Gambia, which is one of the challenges we have if you have to bring them under the regulatory spectrum. So most of them are outside the Gambia, and then all what they have to do is to apply for haulage with the depot, where our regulatory oversight starts from.
Applying haulage at the depot, does that give you the authority to sell petroleum product whilst you are not registered in the Gambia?
Yes, as a trader, if you meet the other health and safety requirements.
So do you want to tell us that it was legal for Apogee to engage in petroleum business in the Gambia?
Yes. We have no reason to say that it was illegal.
But then why did it take you so long as an authority, regulatory authority, to realize that there is a company operating in the Gambia illegally?
I think those are 3 different companies. Apogee as the trader is different from Creed as initially as an agent but incorporated in the Gambia, and Ultimate Patch also as an agent incorporated. So this makes them different entities, and we consider the 2 as importers and Apogee as a trader.
But in the document you've submitted, you are fined Creed an amount of almost $500,000 as a result of they were engaged in illegal petroleum trading. That contradicts your submission.
So they were fined because they were involved in the operations, in the downstream operations. That means they were involved from the storage to the end user. That's the regulatory part in terms of downstream. So they were involved, and then that evidence, I think, has been presented, that there were inflows in terms of volumes. So that's why they were fined, and they were doing it without having the appropriate license to do so.
Chair, I wanted to submit, so please, you don't have to go there.
Let's avoid something so that we get. I think sometimes members come in and go, you might not know that these questions are already answered. So some of us have to see them. We begin to realize that most part of those questions are answered. Yes.
Thank you. I just want to find out, letters dated 14th of August. Were they delivered to Ultimate Head under Creed Energy?
They are supposed to be delivered because they were given to record, and we know they were. And I think an earlier request was for us to submit the proof of delivery that they were actually served, and we accepted that they were. So.
Anyway, thank you very much. I think most of the questions that I wanted to ask has been exhausted. But then I still have two or more questions, or three questions. Simple questions. These are short questions.
It's 5 minutes to 3.
No problem.
Exactly by 3, we are closing.
No problem. So, Emma, I just wanted to know how many times was Oryx or Joel denied haulage as complained over Apoji? Because in your statement that due to some challenges by haulage, these two companies have already complained in your office that they were not having access to haulage because of the storage system by Apoji. How many times?
I think this one need to look at our records and provide the accurate data, because I don't know exactly how many times they were. I'll have to review the documents that they've sent.
So also prior to the complaint lodged by these two companies at the office, you said you have a monitoring team that do go around and then monitor. Have they ever come across such a case and reported to your office?
So haulage, they haven't. They haven't reported an issue of haulage to us. So we got into the investigation of haulage based on complaints that were received from OMCs.
And finally, Honorable Co-Chair, do you know of any other company or person in the Gambia that Apoji or Horemax deals with in terms of saving and storing their products? Do you know of anyone, any company or individual?
No.
Not at all?
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable members. Thank you very much, PURA. We must thank the Fpac Center for taking us through relevant questions as covered by the.
Oh, my. Opposite to your side.
And the answers that were advanced by the witnesses seated before us. Before we conclude, let me remind you of the documents that are requested. That is the OMC's license application for the last 5 years. So the details for filling stations queried by PURA with specific dates. And the PURA Amendment Act. I don't know the year for that one.
Excuse me.
The PURA Amendment Regulation. Which year? Huh? For service station. 2021. 2021. Okay. The report of the site screening 4 and 5 application to PURA by Apoji Gambia Limited. 6 letters of complaint from Oris and Joel, and 7 report of investigation on complaint from Joel and Oris. 5 PURA directive on the village on first come first served basis. 9 location and address of Creek Energy and ultimately logistics. Yes.
And contact person.
Then contact persons to be added.
Yes.
Both full years. And then 10 PURA board management letter on its challenges to Ministry of Petroleum and Energy. And then 11 the government policy to define the means for the proceeding, importation, and re-export of the petroleum products. And then members, I wanted to look these at the list of the documents that are listed. Can we, today is what? Tuesday.
Sorry,
Honorable Chair. Yes.
Clarification, the site screening.
Site?
The site screening reports.
Yes.
For what period?
2 years. 2 years. For 2 years? 2 years. Okay. 2 years.
Chair, how about the number of
yes?
How about the number of times that OFCs were applied or these two companies were
Number of
times that OFCs or the two companies that have indicated that they brought their complaint in the office that they were denied due to.
Well, when we receive the report, we know their actual, what is entailed in the report. Yes?
Chair, just to conclude by saying, any other document that you believe
relevant to the investigation.
Thank you.
Any other document relevant to the investigation? The time frame today is on the 3rd. To be submitted on or before Monday 9th September. Submission 9 on or before 9th September. And then, honorable members, once more we thank PURA for responding to the call and then answering to the jurisdictions posed to them. Before we conclude, MD, do you have anything to say?
Just to thank you, Honorable Chair, and the distinguished members of the committee. Thank you for giving PURA the opportunity to shed some light on matters being investigated by this committee. I hope that our contributions will help in your deliberations. My participation wasn't much because of the fact that I came in new, to the office. And all these that have transpired, happened before my arrival. But we have a team, a great team that has the memory, the institutional memory, that could refer to intervene. And that is why we've been passing, the mic to them. I hope that, they have answered to the best of their ability and their knowledge. I want to thank them for their contributions, and also looking forward to providing the information, the details. I think 9 of them that you want, and by the time before the 9, inshallah, we'll try and provide them all. We are available if there are any other further questions that you may have. We are ready to assist and to provide them. So we thank you for the opportunity.
The documents requested about verifies inclusive any other document relevant to the investigation.
Noted, sir.
Honorable members, this has brought us to the end of this meeting. If we need you anytime, we'll call you back. For now, we'll release you. Can somebody move that we suspend? Yes? Yes.
I want to invite them.
Can somebody move that we suspend the meeting until after 12? We'll pray for it is 3 o'clock.